going on, everybody? Looks like we're live. Let me see. Clint the link. There he is. Don't know if he's working tonight or not. What's going on, Clint? Good to see you, brother. Maybe he's taking a day off or just on break. I'm not sure. I have to wait and see. Good to see you, brother. All right, let me share these links before people start trickling in here. Hope everybody's having a good week so far. I guess Maggie Valley this weekend, so don't forget we'll not be on Saturday, so we'll be in Maggie Valley partying down about this time. Yeah, pretty good time. If those that are able to make it, should be a lot of fun. Always is. So let me get these links shared. I hate having the dead air there, but we got to get these links out. Shouldn't take too long. Had a lot of newcomers Saturday, so hopefully they come back and we pick up a few more. It'd be nice. Seems like word's starting to get around a little bit. And getting some people that's been listening for a while, but hopping in there to tell about their success stories, and that's always nice as well. Just a few more links, and then they'll probably cut us off. I don't know. Last week I got quite a few out, so hopefully that continues. We shall see. Got a few more, and then they'll probably put the brakes on me. We will see. It's a shame because there's only like 3 that I can't get in. Last week there's only like 3 groups that I couldn't get in. So if I could just get that few more, that would be nice. I wouldn't have to post later. Yep. So right there this week. Hang on. I have to start making a new mark. I'll have a pen. All right. Okie doke. Somebody remember me at 10 or not? Yeah, 9:05. Get those out. What's going on, Frank? Wait, let me scroll back. All right, what's going on, Bearwolf? JJ. What's up, Frank? Good to see you, brother. Still working on it. That's good. What's going on, Gary? What's up, Patty? What's going on, Joe? It's Santa. Yeah. It is good to see Clint back. I don't know if he's working. I hadn't said. I don't know if he's just taking a break or if he's working tonight or on call or what. What's going on, Jeremy? Good to see you, brother. Yeah. I think most of us are getting up there in age. You know, if somebody's using Archie Bunker as his picture. He was around when I was. That was a good show. They couldn't show that these day and time. People get too triggered. Yeah, a lot of the comedy and stuff from the past generation just wouldn't fly in today's triggered world. People are too offended by things, too triggered and get too upset. There's probably quite a few shows. You definitely wouldn't have any Richard Pryor stand up comedy, and probably Sanford and Son and all all the family or whatever. Yeah, a lot of those wouldn't be able to be done. Oh, move that up. So how's everybody doing this week? Got anything going on? Who else going to Maggie? For those that are on here, when you come to Maggie, come up and say howdy. Introduce yourself. Let me know where you know me from, because a lot of your icons don't show your faces, and they're so small on here I wouldn't be able to recognize them anyway. There's old Gip. What's up, brother? Not much, man. Just chilling. Just got on here. What's going on, Stuart? Oh, you going early. That's good. That's good. Got mashed in this morning. Like to hear it. How did everything go? Yeah. Yeah, I am gray. It applies. Yeah, that auto wreck, man, it'll get you every time on it. Clint, man, it tears him up. I think Clint uses that voice to speak, and it interprets differently sometimes. What's going on, Mr. Parker? Good to see you, brother. Awesome, awesome. I look forward to seeing y'all. Does it? That's good, man. Yeah, good grain mashes. I had have tomato or potato mash that smells good. Usually they don't. They're not the best smelling mashes, but for some reason this one was smelling pretty good. Really interesting. Well, Rob, these days changed a lot here. No, I'd like to be there Thursday. Usually we go on Thursday and go to the nursing home. I was talking about it on Saturday. Usually we go and take gifts to the people at the nursing home there. And not gonna be able to do it this year. Ann can't get that many days off. She's taking some time off already to go to Florida and spend time doing a cruise with her daughters and sisters and do all that fun stuff. And it's not going to have the time to take as many days off. So we're going to probably come down. We'll come down Friday and come back home Sunday. But yeah, for those that are able to get there for Thursday, I think Thursday around 11, 10 or 11, everybody's getting together. Amanda should be there, and they're all going to get together and go up to the nursing home. So if you could take some snacks, Anything, elderly, they like coloring books, snacks, board games, anything, excuse me, like that. Take up and hand out, and maybe take some snack packs, whatever. Everybody likes pudding and donuts or whatever you want to take. But yeah, they enjoy seeing us every year, and it's become a tradition, and they look forward to it every year. It's I wish we could make it this year, but for those that can make it, it's a very rewarding time, and it means a lot to those people there in the nursing home. They really enjoy watching the show, and the show happens there in Maggie, so a lot of it's centered in that area. So they enjoy watching locals and people they know, get on there. So it's pretty good. It's good. Yeah, yeah. You got to be careful on the turkey fryers. If it's the kind that came with my stand, it's got like a jet burner, and it's great for boiling water. Perfect for boiling water, man. It is hot, but it centers the heat like in a small area like that, and it just focuses the heat in too small an area. Banjo burners, spread it out a lot better. But really, yeah, a stove is a lot more even heat, I guess, especially as gas type stove, glass surface stoves, real good even heat. And I like to steep just for that reason. It's you avoid burning it, and I usually do a pretty good sized pot full, and it's hard to put that. I got like a 20, what is it, 120 quart, 30-gallon pot. It's a big fryer. So it's takes a long time to water to boil on that, but it's it'd cover the whole top of my stove. I guess I could turn all four burners on, but it's more weight than you can really turn some pounds if you were to fill it up. So it's usually like 150 pounds with just water's like what 7.14. I need to know that 7.14. I can't remember pounds. I think it's 8.34. Damn, how am I that far off? Where am I getting 7? Anyway, 8.34 pounds. And so, you get just 20 gallons, 160 pounds. It's a lot of weight. Banana bread, that's interesting. Just some of the organic acids that we talk about, they create a lot of different smells. Yeah, correctile dysfunction. That's what it is, man. That's good, Kevin. Man, I wish I could make it there. Yeah, it's awesome to go in there and spend time with them. They really enjoy it. They look forward to it. I know if I lived in that area, I'd love it too. Seeing everybody come in and say howdy. Christening the new column Thursday with 15-gallon vodka beer wine. And, I'll be christening mine soon too, brother. That's awesome. Yeah, I got a deal on potatoes. I just couldn't resist. It's 99 cents or $1 for a 5-pound bag. Man, I couldn't resist. So I got a bunch. There still wasn't enough. So I had to add a little sugar. That's all right. I'm used to using my recipe I've used in the past. I've always used regular potatoes and sweet potatoes combined, and used brown sugar and kind of made a kind of a vodka rum, if you will. Had interesting flavors, but this time I got to the deal on just the spud, just regular spud potatoes. So actually, I can't remember what kind of potatoes they were. They were good quality potatoes, though, man. They they were good eating potatoes too. And yeah, I needed more than I used though, but I'll add more next time. They were pretty cheap though. Right here on the screen, if you're on the phone, it's going to be really small for you. If you're on a PC, you can read it, or TV, you can read it. Um, so on the right, you're going to see probably just YouTube chat since you're on YouTube. But on the screen, you should be able to see everybody's chat as it pops up. It's not real big. I've asked StreamYard to make it bigger, and hopefully they will. There is a way in OBS to do it, but I it's pretty technical, and I'm not. I may be able to figure it out. I don't know, but it would take me some time. I need to kind of figure that out anyway. But hopefully they'll make it bigger. But if you look just right down here next to me over here, on the screen there'll be a small area. If you're on a phone, it's everybody says it's just you can't read it. It's too small. The only way around that would be to open up, and do a picture in picture. If you're on a PC, you'll be able to see it. But yeah. Yeah, they do. They got a job to do. You can't blame them. That's their job. That's the job they've chosen. So there's a lot. I think there's a lot more need for policing other things, but in that state, they've. I guess they've traditionally had that for a long, long time, and I don't think I would like the job myself. It would. I wouldn't get a lot of gratification like I was saving the world. I'd rather, take down some murderers or some bad guys than some people that were distilling, or some stores that were maybe selling a few bottles underneath the table without paying their taxes, or a distillery that wasn't reporting all their barrels. I guess that's tax evasion, but I guess it's, they don't just look for moonshiners. So, they spend a lot of time making sure that liquor stores don't sell to underage. Their liquor stores are run by the state, so they make sure they're not skirting the laws there. And their inventory things are really weird, how they handle inventory and everything. And they make sure that the distilleries are being up and reporting everything and all that. So their job isn't just to go after moonshiners, but I guess if they find out about one, they're almost obligated to do it. So just got to be careful when you're there. And I know I don't, a lot of people when they go play, I'm going to taste your stuff. Beattyville, that's in state. It's really difficult for me to put something in a jar and take it to another state, knowing what I know. It's interstate, and they can get you for that big time. It's federal. When you take it from one state to the next, it's a different thing. So, but to Beattyville, just here in my own state, I don't think they really care so much. And I wouldn't be in as much trouble. And if I did, I'd be close to home, and I get conjugal visits from Ann, I guess. 50-gallon thin mash. There you go. Oh. Corn, rye, oats, and barley spent. Sounds good, brother. So, do you have any back set to add to that? No, I haven't seen it yet. Wendy posted. I haven't really been on the last couple of days. But we've got there's quite a few things. Was it a coil inside, or a double, jacketed setup, or And you can put a worm inside the steel and force steam through it, and that that works pretty well. Yeah, I know. I was telling somebody the other day, man, getting old, it's like I can't see shit, I can't hear shit, and I can't remember shit. It's that's the bad three. What's going on, Joe? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I know. Yeah, gas is up. Wood fire is not bad once you get used to it. It takes a while, to get the coals and everything just right. But you can be boiling some water while you're getting to that point. But it'll put a bunch of scorch marks on your pots if you got some nice pots. But it'll give those kegs a little character. I had a pretty scorched keg. It was black on the bottom. You can scrape lamp black and off the bottom of it. Oh, doing it. Oh yeah, yeah. Definitely you can put your grains in your thumper. We were talking about that last week or this past weekend or a couple of weeks ago. If you do sparge, sparge your yeast out of it. Try to get all the small particles out. You don't want to distill with a lot of that yeast bed in there. It kind of gives it a really yeasty flavor. I've been through that. But if you can sparge all that yeast bed out of there and just kind of strain your grain and sparge them and throw your grain in the thumper, heck yeah. Or just, I always just put cream corn in there and fresh corn ground up if you can get it. People ask me a lot about distilling fresh corn. Yeah, of course you can. But for me, it's better just to put up in the freezer and eat. But if you can get a few ears cheap, you can grind them up and, cob and all and put it in your thumper and use that for a little flavor flav. You can put a little cream corn in there with it as well. It works real good. Okay. Could you essentially use a standard thumper setup for a keg, or does it need to go through the bottom? Yeah, your input has to go through the bottom to distill through the liquid in there. That's how it redistills it. That heat and going through there, or else it's just more like a puke pot, or what do they call it? I always call it a puke pot. It's yeah, my memory is horrible. Slobber box. It just basically steam across the top and you'll get condensation, but your condensation builds up a lot quicker because you're not cooking a lot of it off as it accumulates. It's not getting cooked back off, and it just accumulates and the steam kind of stays on the top and goes through the output, just in through the top, out through the top, and it just accumulates, and it doesn't do a lot of good. But yeah, you don't have to come through the top and have a down tube. You can come in through the bottom with an elbow, going up, and come in through the bottom. You don't have to have a down comber. You can go in through the bottom like that and just out through the top on the other side. It needs to be a little taller to get that separation, a little better separation, especially if you're using 2-inch ferrules. It's got 2 inch. You don't want it to be like that because there wouldn't be a lot of room for liquid in between. So, 2 inch down here and up here. Someone posted, Larry Parker posted his today, and he's got one like I've been talking about for years, copper vessels instead of jars, bypass. He's got two. He's got infusion port at the top, drain the bottom. He's got a sight glass in it. Freaking perfect. And that's the best. And they called it two little mini thumpers, but it's just two basic copper infusers. And if y'all see I think it's on the militia page. So if y'all get a chance to look at it, check it out. Maybe I'll just put it up here so everybody can see it. Here to me. Pull that up. This is exactly what I've been talking about doing. And everybody should be making these because it's a lot safer than a glass jar. Let me see. I'm thinking that's if not. I'll have to just go to his page and pull it up. Yeah, you got several good ones. All right. All right, maybe I have to go see. Let me pull up. Just a second. Got to pull this up, man. It's awesome. Facebook, I swear to God, you kill me. Well, I thought it was on there. Well, hell. It's Kenny Parker. I posted it. No, it's one of them Parkers. I guess it's Kenny that posted it. Maybe. Oh, yeah. I'll find it. I should have saved the picture, but I was on my phone when I saw it. Maybe it wasn't Larry or Kenny. Hell, I'll have to look around and see. Somebody posted it. Anyway, it's basically, instead of 2 jars, it's 2 copper vessels. Those look like about half to 3/4 of a gallon each, maybe. I'm going to build some when I do my copper steel here for long. Yeah, the fuser plates are good. They're not, it's going to take more gas because you're having to heat up the plate in between. With the banjo burners, if you get a 10-inch, it should spread it out pretty well. And you just cut back on your heat. You don't have to have a big rage. And if you're boiling water, wide FO, wide freaking open, man. But when you're cooking corn, yeah, you got to cut that way back. Yeah. Like, so if you got a pot and you got a 2-inch ferrule on the bottom and one on the top, yeah, you can like come out with an elbow going up, and as long as the top of that is exceeding, it's not going to back up, right? So yeah, you can feed in through the bottom through an elbow. You don't have to have a down comber, and I might do that on mine. I don't know. Be a little tougher maybe to do a bypass. You'll have to go a little higher to have your bypass because you don't want liquids in your bypass. So you'd have to, tee at the top, and it'd have to go above it. So, but yeah, you don't have to go through the top with a downcomer. You can go in through the bottom side for sure. Right, regular thumper. Steam one. I think. Pretty sure Wayne's done something like that. Yeah, I mean it's a job, and like the ALE, I would get more enjoyment, being a regular cop and going after the bad of the bad, and of course when you see something illegal, it's your job. You can't just ignore it, whether it's weed, but moonshine or whatever. If they're gonna put it right in your face, and do it right, like hell, popcorn, doing it right in the park, distilling liquor at a festival in the park. And the people there were like, I just assumed he had a license or permit to do it, or, they didn't. But until, the feds got involved, the local, they just kind of overlook it, and just, it's is what it is. Festival, it's just not make waves, let it go, no big deal. And it's really wasn't a big deal, but in the whole scheme of things, especially consider how much tax dollars are wasted. But yeah, when you're a cop, man, I mean, it's your job. You just can't look the other way. What's going on, Curtis? Good to see you, brother. No, I haven't seen it yet. I guess I'm gonna have to check it out. Yeah, we might just put it on here in a minute. I'm assuming it's on YouTube. Let me find it. All right. So, all right, class. I guess we're gonna show a video. So just hold on 1 minute. I don't know if I should do. I'll just share the screen. So let me share screen. Oops, that's not the share screen button. That is. So let me share. Let me open it up first. I go full screen on that. All right, let me see here. Let me get back to. I don't have to minimize it to get her going. And here we go. Share. Get back here. Go full screen. Play.
Find a way to distill on the grain or on the fruit and just dump your sludge and everything in the bottom of your mash tun right in your pot without burning it. Because you're going to burn with turkey burner. You're going to burn with heating element. But thanks to my buddy Andrew at North Georgia Still Co., he gave us this idea. Check this shit out. This is awesome. This is killer. It's crazy, and it's easy to do. All right, so we're going to fill this one full of water and fill this one full of slop. We're going to bring this water to a boil. We're going to pipe it in from here into here.
Right, this is what I was talking about, JJ.
And then
going into the bottom.
The heat from the steam from this water pot will distill the slop without burning the slop. So you could run your sloppy ass wine the bottom of your mash barrels without having to hand strain them. Just dump it all in here. Fill this full of water. This is what we got. This is what we come up with. We're going to call this a steam wand or steam injection. Shove her inside. Put it in me. Yeah. Look at that. Now, later on, we could do this out of thicker, better pipe. This is just a prototype. We just want to see how it runs. You know what I'm saying? Well, let's put some sludge in this sumbitch and some water in this other one and see what happens. Here been poor, wanted to run on the grain.
Got a little lactose.
This got alcohol in it, but I don't feel like running it through a strainer and a cheesecloth and get covered in this shit head to toe. Let's put it in here.
It's a little wild yeast.
And we're going to put it in that one. And we're going to run it with steam. Piss her out. It pissed all over the floor. Regardless.
That's a little bit of calm yeast. Ain't nothing wrong with that. And he wasn't kidding when he said slop. So he's already distilled the clears.
That kegg's full of water.
He's just going to
got a heating element running to the wall. Right there. And we're going to put a column over here, the condenser.
So that was steam one down there. Yeah.
Yeah, motherfucker. That's my buddy Wes. I'm about to fuck shit up. So, we're dripping. We started dripping at 125. It's at 140.
It's
at 140 degrees now. Oh, it's starting to be headsy now. The first few drips didn't smell like heads at all. But we're going well, how many gallons do you think we put in here?
12, 11.
11?
11 or 12.
So we're going to throw out about 500 milliliters, and then we'll smell her, see what's up. This is crazy, though, man. We're getting alcohol out of all that nasty shit, and we ain't even got to fucking strain it. You guys go check out North Georgia Still Co. They're the reason why we come up with this. We watched one of their videos, and then we was like, man, we're going to try that shit ourselves. Badass, Andrew. Appreciate you, bro. Taste it. It's coming out 100 proof. It's crazy how this is, man. This is crazy as hell. This shit tastes so smooth and delectable and soft and delicious. That mash was only at 1020 when it finished. It wouldn't go no further. So it's low proof mash. And I just wanted to strip all that shit so I could add to the clear that was on top. So I could get a second run of this rum. But this is awesome. This is going to add, we're going to take this alcohol and add to a mash that I've got of the same, but it ain't so thick. So it's a way of not wasting alcohol. You know what I mean? You're pulling all the good out of it. It's insane. I can't believe we haven't done this before. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, shout out to North Georgia Still Co, man. Those guys are fucking awesome. Andrew, this is genius. Steam wand, you know, this is a steam engine, basically. After doing the sludge from my pumpkins, which was kind of low gravity, you know, it didn't finish all the way. I went ahead and filled it full of sludge from another run because I always got bottom of the barrels, you know, they're always
Dunders,
you know, 5-10 gallons of sludgy shit in the bottom of these barrels. And sometimes I just throw it out just because I don't feel like straining it. But sometimes I sit there for hours running it through brew bags, squeezing it out, and then I run it on a smaller still. But I don't show a lot of that. You know, that's the shitty side of distilling. But now, instead of I'm just going to scoop it in the damn kegs and run it off that way. And I'm going to be honest, man, like, just try this. I couldn't really tell much of a difference in the flavor. So I know everyone's like, on the grain, which is cool. The coolest part about, for me, being on the grain is, I don't know, man, that smells pretty fucking good. It's just throwing it out, you know. I let it sit overnight. All right. I don't know if it's better. I don't know. It might be better. No. I don't. Paw Paw is a different animal. You know what I'm saying? It tastes like Paw Paw, but Paw Paw only tastes like Paw Paw. And everyone's like, it tastes like this and it tastes like that. To me, it tastes like its own distinct fruit, regardless. People are always trying to compare it to
comments
banana
right now, so I'm looking at the full
pineapple.
screen.
It does smell like pineapple when you're mashing, when you're tearing it up. Now it has its own smell. It don't smell like pineapple any longer. And it smells tropical though. It's like fucking Ohio's tropical fruit. But anyways, man, that's fucking amazing. So I did an actual run, and I got actual proof. Instead of coming out at 100, like it was with the pumpkin mash, this run was coming out at 130. And that's awesome. And that's probably what it was coming out on my still. It might have been at 140 when I did the original Paw Paw on my copper still. So it's 10 proof less, but I'm not running a thumper. You know what I'm saying? And when running like this, your pot essentially becomes a thumper. And the pot of water is pretty much considered your pot. So, I mean, you're thumping and you can hear it. It's like thump, 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 thumping the whole time. You know what I mean? This is crazy. This is awesome. This is what I'm going to do with my sludge from now on. And, I might blend some of it and just be like, all right, that's a barrel sludge. Eventually get to running it and just dump it. And it might be something great. This is great. I got fucking 6 jars of liquor that I would normally have not gotten. 6 extra jars. So if you're bootlegging, you're throwing out, imagine how many fucking bootleggers just toss out so much liquor or spend so much time squeezing the shit out of it, and then they don't have enough to complete a full run. In this case, you can put as much sludge in there as you want. You could put 5 gallons in that keg because that keg isn't a pot. It's a thumper. You know what I'm saying? You can't overfill it. If you overfill it, then you'll get into trouble. That's the thing to keep in mind. You want to keep your pot of water about 3/4 of the way full. And you want to keep you're still about a little under 3/4 of the way full. So anything from, I'd say, 0 to 12 gallons, man. You know what I mean? I wouldn't put more than 12 gallons in the fucking secondary.
Definitely don't.
Just because the water's going to leave this one and go into this one.
You have a drain
and then,
on it,
worst case scenario, you puke. Now, I wouldn't run a thumper. I would just use this to strip liquor out of fucking sludge. And when I say strip, I don't mean to strip to rerun, even though that's what I'm doing with that pumpkin shit. I needed some liquor to add to because I'm gonna make a pumpkin bourbon. But what I'm saying is, like, you just strip the liquor out of the sludge. In this case, this is drinkable. This is good shit. It had a drinkable proof. It's not tailsy. It's crazy. I fucking love this. This is killer. I love playing with new stuff. This is the first time I've been excited in a while. I've kind of been like grinding, building the same shit every day. It gets monotonous. And is that what you would call it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just get tired of it. And it's always cool when something new comes along that kind of get me excited and get me fucking in another direction, because I need shit like that because I'm derpy derps. But anyways, man, give a shout out to Andrew at North Georgia Still Co. for bringing this idea to light to a lot of us. I know it's been around for a long time, but to explain it the way he did, so that we see what it actually is and that it's possible. Like, the minute I seen it, I was like, oh fuck, I could build one of them, and I did. I had one built in 10 fucking minutes. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty fucking cool. You need two kegs, one welded keg, basically. Yeah, one welded keg, and the new design that I'm gonna make, like, I'm gonna take this. problem that I run into is when I was done running, I had to disconnect. I had this just hanging off the one, because if you disconnect this one, you're going to get your goop all over the place. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a tri-fitting right here, so that this is two pieces, and in the future, so that I can move one keg, take it out, dump the sludge out of it, because it's nothing left. It's sludge. It's just backset, pulp, and nasty shit. And then you can leave this connected. If I'm sure you know, most of you, but if you leave this connected when you're finished and you turn your heat off, all that sludge is going to backtrack to your water keg. And that's another thing, is you want to disconnect this from your water keg as soon as you're done running, or at least, turn your heat off, count the fucking 20, and then do it, so you don't get burnt with steam. But anyways, be careful if you do this. But it's fucking awesome. So I also want to give a shout out to my buddy Wes, who you've seen in the video earlier. This was his idea. He brought that video to me of Andrew doing it, and he was like, check this out, we ought to try this. Wes is an awesome guy. I wish he was here today to finish the video with me, but he's not. So I wanted to say that before I finish. I almost forgot to add him. Give him a shout out, because none of this would be possible without him. And we did this together, this whole thing. He was at home when I ran the second run, but he's got a big work schedule and he can't be here all the time. And I'm not gonna wait around on him, but he will end up trying this. I'm gonna see what he thinks. Wes was my dude. They call him the Sandman.
Sandman.
Appreciate you, Wes. That's all I got. This is cool as hell. I can't wait to do more runs. I've done 2 so far. I got so many barrels of fucking sludge that I don't want to waste. So, this keeps you from wasting anything. You get to literally utilize every drop of alcohol that's in everything you do. It's fucking killer. Thanks for watching. See y'all later.
Hey.
All right. That was killer. Now, I've done very similar, but my whole premise is you're pushing steam through that sludge. So it's basically water. So it's picking up alcohol from that sludge by distilling that sludge, but you're also introducing a lot of water with no alcohol in it. Why not put your clears in the first still, that you just fermented, right? And that was more like a brandy sludge, like you said, it was from pawpaws and it was from pumpkins. So, that's not going to be like a grainy sludge, in your grains, you're going to be able to separate all those spent grains from the yeast bed, because the yeast bed really doesn't add a lot of flavors that are good, right? It's going to make it just too yeasty. It's not that great. So you sparge that grain off, dump those into the keg. I like the idea of the wand, though, going across there and distributing the steam evenly that's coming out. But instead of it being steam from water, have it steam from your original clears, right? So run your clears in the first pot and have it go through that and pick up the extra flavor. That's just like basically infusing the flavor with the sludge, right? So that's kind of what I was talking about by sparging your grain and just dumping them into your thumper, but I really like the idea of the wand. I like the idea, how they set up the pipe to go over into it and evenly distribute that. Real good idea. A lot less chances of, a lot of people will put a fitting in going through the top and it's got like a straight pipe down. And a lot of times if you have some solids in there, you can push that straight down comber into the solids and it just clog up your pipe and cause a lot of problems. Some people put a little elbow at the bottom of it. That way, when you set it in, it's going elbow first and just kind of pushes it out of the way. You don't spear into a lot of solids that way. But yeah, good idea. I just think that instead of using water to steam, just just distill your clears into that sludge and as a stripping run, strip it all out, strip everything out of your sludge as well, and then maybe do your second run without it. Right? I think I'm gonna have to see if he can try that, especially with grains. Now with this sludge, it may be better to do it this way, but yeah, didn't use any back sets this time. Yeah, but I think it'd be good to just put your clears into the first still. That's what when North Georgia was did their video on it. That was my whole thing when I watched it. It's like, why put water in there? You just put your mash clears in there. Put your mash in there, put the wash in there, then the clears, and then put the rest of it into your thumper. Now I will say, a lot of times that yeast bed probably not going to be the best thing to distill through and carry through. So I would definitely try to, you're not going to be able to do that in the sludge like, a lot of your brandies will do when you puree a lot of your fruits and stuff. It's just not going to be possible. So that's going to be fine. But for like grains, I would definitely try to sparge out all the yeast bed and just put those grains over there. We've been talking about that for a couple of weeks now. And I've talked about, putting cream corn, grind you some corn up and put that in your thumper, and it'll help pick up that flavor. If you've got spent grains, definitely do the same thing for sure. But yeah, it's a great idea, and I really like the wand. Hello, Miss Marie. How are you? Howdy, howdy. I'm sorry I'm a little late. We were watching a little video, and I couldn't see the screen. I was watching it on the other screen. Good evening, Customer X. Have you heard anything about using 10% special corn, Buddy Butcher, Jimmy Red, etc., and the rest of your bill with plain corn? Come out with a specific special corn flavor? Absolutely. Actually, Alan Bishop created a strain of corn by crossbreeding different corns together. It's called Amanda Palmer corn. And he crossbred a lot of different corns. So several different, like a blue corn, a red corn, a white corn, several different corns into one. And you look at the kernel, it's kind of like a gem corn. You see all these different colors, and those actually come from each ear. But absolutely, mix a lot of corn. You get a lot of people doing a red, white, and blue. They mix the Jimmy Red with Cherokee white with an Ohio blue. And get a red, white, and blue, which a lot of people say is a great combination. So absolutely, yeah, you can make some pretty interesting combination. That's what experimenting around and playing with that. A lot of fun. And the red, white, and blue, especially the three varieties I just mentioned, makes a really good blend. Yeah, it definitely does. It's kind of like a little corn helper, but definitely, especially something like instead of the Jimmy Red, like the Bloody Butcher, Bloody Butcher that you mentioned, because it's quite a bit more oily and earthy than the Jimmy Red. So if you use smaller percentage of it, a lot of people don't like it because it is so earthy and oily and carries such a strong flavor. So definitely using a lower percentage of that to give it a little bit of that earthy, oily note, but along with some sweet corn and some white, definitely makes a great combo. Definitely. Yeah, I'm glad we played that video. It's yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's you definitely want to experiment with the flavor. If you're using a Bloody Butcher, you could probably use lower percentages and get that flavor and get some of that from it. And some of the others maybe not so much. So you may kind of do like they do the red, white, and blue. I think it's basically 33% of each, a few pounds of each, to get close to 10, right? And do it a third each, and maybe play with your ratios, to get a little bit more out of it. Right. Is it a combination? Yeah, I know that maybe it could be the Amanda Palmer that Alan bred. Oh, I'm glad I read that. I forgot to put the comments back up. Really, that's crazy. Hopefully we can. Yeah, somebody was commenting on that earlier, Clint, that they're not seeing as much or the same thing. So I'm gonna have to let me scroll down here and make sure that that so far they are. When I get some more Facebook comments, I'll check again. Most coming from YouTube. What's going on, Mr. Morgan? Good to see you. Oh, that's good. I'm glad you're going to be there. So you're going to the nursing home too. That's good, brother. I'll see y'all there on Saturday or Friday. What's going on, Shrove? Corn and wheat running. Awesome. I love me some wheat. That's good stuff, man. It makes it a little sweeter. I love wheated bourbons. Those are my favorite. That's perfect, brother. That's where you want it. I'll have to read into that, man. U.S. Okay, I was wondering. I thought South Carolina. Hell, that'd be probably one of the like U.S. Okay. Yeah, I like his videos. Everybody telling me I should do them, man. I'm gonna leave that to all them guys and doing the TikTok. I don't even get on TikTok. I yeah, I enjoy this doing what I'm doing right here. You know, I may do an instructional video one time on, how to steep and do a complete thing or something like that. But as far as doing, being content creation and all that stuff, it's just I don't even got time for it. I just don't. And the inclination, I'll leave that to Phil, Billy, and all the other people. I just want getting in on here and talking with everybody and answering questions and helping any way I can. I'll leave the videos to them, but I may do it like an instructional video once on a beginning to end corn and maybe a multi-grain or something like that, just to kind of put out there for beginners, But as far as doing a lot of it's interesting and a lot of it's some of it's done for education. Most Phillies is that way, but a lot of times you know it's also content creation, like the time he distilled his piss. you know yeah, that's out there, man. Bear Grylls distillation, right? But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Watched him. I enjoy watching him. Oh yeah, it was it got a little fire under him, I guess. He and that might have been a little sarcasm, but yeah, he was something new, something that he hadn't tried before, because it does get old, man. I made thin mash for so long, it just became, at the first it was awesome, it's cool, I was doing something, and by the end it's like, I'm getting low on liquor, damn, I'm gonna have to make another run, and so the thrill was gone, and it was just, a method just to get some alcohol, get some free liquor, And when you start getting low, it's like, damn, do I go to the bootleggers or do I make a run? Because we didn't have liquor stores. Bootleggers were expensive, so it was a lot cheaper to make your own than to go to the bootleggers back then. Yeah. So what do you think, Clint? Well, I haven't scrolled down. You may have commented already, but why not just put your mash in one side, your wash one side and this, the mush in the other. And instead of running water through there and getting lower proof, why not just run that liquor, and strip that way? I think it'd be a great way to strip. But I generally do my finish runs or one runs when I do that. I mean, when I put the spent grains in there, it's not, a strip run with those in there. That's going to be a final run with that infused, right? I'm infusing the cream corn or the spent grain. What's going on, Penny? Yeah, man. Pumpkin, sweet potato. Yeah, they complement each other pretty well. I like the sound of that. I've used a lot of sweet potatoes. I've never done pumpkins. Yeah, so he's liking that Coors Light. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Shit, they may call the damn the dog or the peed on you. So he's killing his dog. A lot of people get triggered over shit. Yeah. It's not any more dangerous. It's basically the same thing as distilling. You're gonna be doing it at 210 degrees instead of 190 and change. So you're gonna be 210 plus, running boiling water instead of boiling a mash. So you're gonna be maybe 15, 20 degrees hotter, which is not gonna be too bad. Gonna have probably maybe a touch more pressure, but still operates at 3.5, 4 psi, maybe 5 if you have thumpers. If you have multiple jar rigs or big thumpers, it might get up to 5 plus, but not a lot of psi. And with that smaller pipe coming off a keg, I don't know if that was 5/8 or half. It looked like a 5/8, so it's not going to be too much back pressure. A little bit of back pressure creating some higher pressure and temperatures in there, but it's probably not going to be 5 or 6 psi. And the tri-clamp systems are designed to handle like 300, right? So it's nowhere near capacity to the pressure a keg holds. When it's pumped up, that's probably closer to 15, 10 or 15 psi when it's pressurized. And the plumbing involved is designed to hold a lot of pressure, actually way overkill. I wish they would create some lighter weight spools and tri-clamp type pipe for maybe 50 psi or 100 instead of 300, but it is what it is. It's designed for a lot of other stuff that they use in the industry as well, not just for us. So there's a lot of different applications that use the tri-clamps and the spools and everything. And there's a lot of gas. A lot of times they're pumping, high pressure gas through them. So, but yeah, it's not going to be too much more dangerous, but I think it'd be easier just to run your mash through it instead of running just water and steam and lowering the proof. Just put your clears on one side, put your mash, the sludge on the other side, run it all through and strip it, get all that flavor out of there that you can, and then do a second run with an infusion, and I think that would be really good. I'm going to talk to Phil about that and see what they think. Get him to try that. Right. Yeah. Agitators, not educators. That's autocorrect here. But yeah, a lot of them will have agitators. But distilling on the grain, it's I've always talked about that. Instead of putting the bag in the actual pot itself, you can put that bag over in the thumper, right? If you have a thumper that you can take the top off of, or a large opening, but you really don't have to have it in a bag unless you're just trying to keep it out of the plumbing, But yeah, I think if you could sparge off, if you're in grains, doing grains, and you could sparge off that yeast and just pull the grain flavor, I think it would definitely improve the output for sure. Because I've done it, the yeast doesn't taste all that good coming off that way. Yeah. Well, I mean, half people feed their chickens spent grains, and they run around drunk, and a lot of animals will eat it. So, I mean, I think I had a dog that drank beer too, and I think it knocked it down, just started lapping it up off the ground, and I let it. But yeah, I'd say a lot of them like it. Yeah, it's forming a heat sink. And yeah, you want to use certain kinds of rocks. Certain rocks, when they get hot, tend to, explode if they get to a certain temperature. Maybe it might have to take a little higher temperature. I know you don't want to put river rock around your campfire because those can explode and be quite dangerous. I mean, they can shoot, fragments of rock at you pretty high speed. It's almost like shrapnel. So yeah, you make sure you're using, certain types of rock. But yeah, it just forms a heat sink. It heats up in there. You can do the same thing with stainless steel balls if you wanted to, get big ball bearings and put in there. Just make sure that you're using a stainless and not a carbon steel. But yeah, it just forms a heat sink. And, actually, I've seen some people do purification of water by heating up rocks and putting them down into water and boiling the water that way. To purify it, in the survival technique. Stained ones. I was wondering, I didn't figure that one out. Stained ones, yeah. Yeah, it gets you every time, man. And that would, look how much money that'll save you by distilling all the alcohol out of that sludge that would normally just get thrown away. And that's why I preach running out those tails, because that's probably where most of it gets wasted. Is most people don't run the tails out. They get to the tails and they're like, okay, we're done. Shut her off. Dumps it out. 80 proof, 90 proof out the door. There's a lot of alcohol in that 90 proof, isn't there? 90 proof. That's what you get in your bottles that you buy. That's crazy. You just don't think about it. Oh, we're done. Tails, we hit the tails. Oh, it's all bad. It's all just fusel oils and everything. No, there's a lot of good ethanol in there. There is a percentage of fusel oils and other, heavier volatiles, but there's a lot of ethanol in there that's giving it that proof. So running those tails is probably where not running tails where a lot of people lose most of their alcohol for sure. Yeah, I've seen the lava rocks, right? And what is this? There's one. I'm not sure it's a ceramic. I know they use some ceramics as well. They use a lot of ceramics. Amanda Palmer's good stuff. And I think even Alan said he likes it with a combination. So use the Amanda Palmer with your favorite corn. He likes the combination of doing it with, like, if you love that Ohio Blue, an Amanda Palmer with an Ohio Blue would be awesome. Yeah. So it's great alone, or it's great in combination. Yeah, I was wondering about ash. I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? Copper and ash. There's a new one. I'm like, man, we pHing or what? I didn't want to say anything. I'm like, okay. But I do know a lot of people that put a lot of marbles, in their column, anything to create reflux, to help reflux. But ceramics work real well too. They've also created what's called a molecular sieve with basically it's a ceramic. It's got a certain porosity to it, very, very small pores, which will allow, water to go through, but not alcohol. So it traps the alcohol and allows water through. So pretty interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of combinations. Red, white, and blue is probably one of the most that you hear about the most. Most people do, and it's of course patriotic, but a lot of different great combinations out there. Yeah, I got me a little. I used to just let it sit in a bag. I've got a little 4-foot ladder, and I would just tie that. There's a hole right in the very top, where I just pull the line up, tie it around the top of the ladder, and just let the bag sit above a bucket all night. And I just leave it sit there overnight, and the next day, and it would get the most out. I mean, I'd squeeze it out as best I could by hand and just let it drip overnight. And by 8, 12 hours the next day, it would be fairly done. I'm not going to try to get the last drop out. I mean, really, come on. We're talking maybe a few shot glasses more out of it. I'm not that hard up for the last drop. It's not Folgers, but so that worked well. But it took quite a while just sitting there. So I saw everybody started using these little mop ringers. So I got in to pick me up a mop ringer, and that works real well too. I just take the bag out and set the brew bag in, after I siphon off the clears. First, you siphon off your clears, right? So you get all the clears off that you can. You put that in one vessel, and then you dump the rest of it into, your brew bag and put that in a mop ringer. And I just use it for that. And everybody's like, hey, you use a mop ringer? Doesn't it taste like Mr. Cleaner? No, I don't use cleaners in it. It's just for that. So, and that works real well, real quick. Some people have these little grain dryer centrifuges that spin, and spin out I've seen those kind of go crazy and just all over the place and make huge messes, but they work pretty well when they work. A lot of ways to strain it, but the mop thing strainer works pretty well. But, looking back, it's probably best just to leave it all in there with what little moisture's on it. Add some, sugar water to it, some back set to it, and just sour mash it. That's the best thing to do with it. But you can sparge your grain out of there and you put it in your thumper too. That's a good thing. All right, brother. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you coming in and asking your questions anytime, brother. Yeah, it'd be a pretty hell of a drive from Texas. There is some pretty good festivals in Arkansas around October. I know in Clinton, Arkansas, they have a festival every year, and I know they have a couple down there, and I'm not sure when the other one is. I had to find out from Cyrus. They have another one, but yeah, a couple good in Arkansas, which is kind of right next to you, not too far of a drive. And that's around Halloween every year in Clinton. It's a good one. But thanks for dropping in, brother. Anytime you got any questions, man, pop in or just pop into chat. Let us know what you got going on. Good chatting with you, brother. Right. Now I've got the wood type press too. And that's kind of slow. I'll use it for pressing apples and stuff. And it's kind of slow. You have to sit and, when it spins, and slowly moves down and press where you got that ringer, just boom, done. Move it around, ring. With the fruit press, it is kind of slow. But it's, that's an old traditional thing. If you want to make some cider and do some other things, I'm sure people would rather see you using a fruit press than a mop ringer. They just start gagging. You made my apple wine in a mop ringer. Yeah, they immediately think they're drinking mop water. So, yeah. That's right, man. We're learning every day. Yeah, and it not only gets the alcohol out, it's picking up the flavor from that spent grain. That's a biggie too. So you're not just getting all that alcohol out of it. You're also picking up a lot. So in beer making, they sparge. So they sparge the grain to get all the fines and stuff out. So after you do that, boom, put that grain over, put it in your thumper, let that sparge settle, strain it, put it in your pot, and then just distill it through. I think that'd be the best of both, and just strip it that way, or just run it that way. Yeah, yeah. Once you and the thing when you become a commercial distiller is consistency. And that's when you really have to start treating it like a science experiment to get that consistency. You got to get your temperatures the same, your pH the same, because if you keep all these variables the same or as close to the same as possible, you get consistent results. And consistency is probably one of the most important things, in a commercial distillery. A lot of you'll definitely tell that, you know, well, I did this watermelon mash last time. It didn't turn out like this. It's pretty good this time. Or I've never had it come out good. And this time it's better. That's because you had a lot of variables that were different this time than the last time. And, but that's one thing in a commercial setting, you have to have consistency because you want this one jar or one bottle to taste like the bottle that somebody bought 5 years ago, and unless you change the recipe, you want to keep it exactly as close as you can. And I'm going to take a break. Let me get the rest of these links up there. It is that time. Won't take but a second. There's not but a few. All right, there we go. I got it. Yeah, that's the way to do it. You're just diluting everything by running just steam water. Absolutely. Put the beer or the wash, whatever, in one, and run that through your steam into the sludge. Absolutely. Right. For me, like in a brandy, or where we puree the fruit, sludge is sludge, and it is hard to separate the sludge from the yeast bed because it's usually all just a quagmire, right? Um, but like in a grain, it's easy to screen out those larger chunks of the cracked corn or of the grain, maybe not of your finer stuff, but a lot of your bigger chunks of corn and a lot of your cracked corn and a lot of your grains, especially if you crush them and don't, grind them to a fine powder, which a lot of people prefer to crush them because it's a lot easier to thin them out. And, but if you use that crush, it's easy to sieve and get all your finer particles sparged off, you know, and washed out through the grains and save those grains and put that in there. I think definitely the way to go. If you can do it, if you got the time, because it's definitely going to give you a lot more flavor. Now, is it going to be as good as the cream corn and fresh corn? Probably not, but it's something that you have on hand and you're not spending extra money on either. So, and I'd say it's going to get about as close to distilling on the grain as you're going to get without distilling on the grain. And technically, you kind of are, but it's a second distillation, right? But it doesn't have to be a primary distillation to be distilling on the grain. So, but yeah, I think having the beer go through for sure would be much more efficient. Yeah, I heard Budweiser's sponsoring us. So that's going to be good. Regular Bud. I'm not a big beer drinker. I've never been a big beer drinker. I was always a Boilermaker because I just love whiskey. Always been a big whiskey drinker. And I had a little bit of hand in, you've probably heard of the bourbon barrel beer by Alltech. I had a little bit of hand in the idea behind making that. Yeah, a buddy of mine that was he still does. He has a side job of selling cigars, and he has a farm here in Kentucky that him and his family they grow some specialized tobacco that's kind of unique and different, and they ship it to, I think it's the Dominican Republic. Somewhere, to have it wrapped with their local wraps, right? And he brings it back. It's Black Patch Cigar Company out here out of Lexington. And so my buddy used to be good friends with Pierce, and the guy that used to run Alltech before he passed away, and they talked a lot. And Eric was asking me about, when Alltech, was talking about getting into distilling. This was many years ago, and I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. And they, had the beer come out, and I'm like, maybe they could, do Boilermakers or make, store the beer in barrels. I knew that was a practice back in the old days. So like that'd probably make some pretty good beers. So next thing you know, they got bourbon barrel beer, baby. But they may have been thinking about that already because they had a lot of barrels on hand, and then they started getting into making moonshine, and they opened a place in, I know he was an Irishman, and he was, he loved Eastern Kentucky, and he loved Pike County, and because it's a lot like where he grew up and the people were. And so he moved a distillery there to help the people back home. And I think Eric might have had a little hand in that as well. That's my buddy that owns the cigar company. Yeah, pretty cool story, huh? Yeah, that became a multi-million-dollar business. Absolutely. Yep, no yeast and no nutrients. It's all there, man. Yeah, I'll see you there this weekend, brother. Actually, it just gets higher and higher. The conversion level does, but it gets to the point where you just can't work with it, right? It's just too thick. You don't get enough liquids out of it. You just have too much. And I mean, you get the liquids, but it's just not going to be as much liquids. A lot gets soaked up into the grain, but you do get higher conversions the more you use. But I'm sure there's a point where it's just, you got 500 pounds of corn and, a gallon dripping out of it, it's going to be crazy, but I'm sure there's a point where it's just stupid. But yeah, it converts a lot more, but it's just so hard to work with. And it doesn't really, it doesn't increase your production because you would have gotten more had you saved that corn back and converted it in a lower ratio and run that again. And you would have had more volume that way than to try to push it. And once it gets beyond a certain gravity, it's not going to be that good anyway. But I'm sure there's a point that it's just not going to get any higher. And you're just going to cut back on the quantity of liquid you get off of it, because it's just going to soak into the grain and get lost. I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, for a small, I would definitely wouldn't use anything less than a half inch. It will help if you were doing water, like they're talking about, it having a little bit smaller, not smaller than half inch, but having a half inch or a 5/8 as opposed to 1.5 inches or 2 inch, like what we do with the spools. Would be back pressure creating higher temperature, and it would make your water, if you were using water, it'd make it easier to boil your water and get a little higher steam and maybe a little higher pressure to force through there. Uh, but yeah, you definitely don't ever want to use it smaller than a half inch, on anything, because it's just going to create too much back pressure. Um, we talk about back pressure increasing the temperature in the wash, which if that were your beer, it's not going to be good, because it's all going to cook off. There's not going to be a little bit of separation like we normally get in pot still distillation. Even though it's not fractional distillation, you do get a little bit more heads and force coming off first, right? And you still get them throughout the run, but a little higher proportion at first. But if you have that back pressure and you have that higher temperature, it's you don't get as much off at first. It's just almost constant throughout, so it's almost smears. There is a step down, but it doesn't do the curve. It just kind of gradually steps off instead of dropping off real quickly and just leveling out. You're going to kind of have this, and it's going to have a lot more carryover. That's why a lot of these stills with larger, like 1.5 inch, 2 inch spools, produce better tasting liquor, and because you don't have that pressure and you can control your temperature a lot better. But yeah, if they had 1 inch coming off that, or 1.5 inches, probably the bigger they go, they're going to find it's probably a little bit better, because you really don't need that vapor velocity blowing through that sludge. And also, would pointing it down, if it's going in 1 inch or 2 inches above the bottom, would blowing it down and having it come up on the sides and all over be better than blowing it focused up in one spot. I think blowing it down might be better. That way you get more coverage, steam going throughout through your sludge, than just shooting straight up, through one spot. Maybe, hypothetically, I think the science would show it might be better to point it down and have it, come up all around. Maybe be a good experiment too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely nothing less than 1/2 inch. Absolutely not. You already know. Yeah, really. Hell yeah. No problem, brother. Now we again, for the people that tuned in late, we won't be here Saturday. This Saturday we're going to be in Maggie, so gonna miss all of you all that aren't here. But just keep in mind we won't be on here Saturday. We might try to do a little live remote, but I don't know. I'll probably be too done figured out on the phone. I don't know. I don't have StreamYards on my phone. I don't know if I might. I ain't gonna do no Facebook Live. And yep. That's all I need. Everybody see me getting hammered. Yeah, a lot of drunk chickens, ducks, dogs. Yeah, deer. Deer are pretty picky though, man. They'll wait and let that shit sit a few days and air out, and once all that alcohol evaporates off, then they'll be a little more. Unless they're just hungry as hell. What's going on, Brian? Yeah, copper pennies absolutely work. Yeah, it's that we want everybody to be safe, and that's the biggie. You know, a lot of people go into this hobby, and there's two schools. Some people are just very concerned about everything, and if they get a little comm yeast on the top or some lactose, like throw it out. That looks bad because they're just ultra paranoid. And then you got the other guys run it. I don't care. Let the coons shit in there. I don't get. They don't care about anything. Yeah, it's just leaking. It's not too close to the fire. Hope. And then you got they just don't care, and accidents happen, and it's kind of a natural selection kind of thing. But we try to make it safe for everybody, and when you do start your still up, you got to walk around it like an 18-wheeler in the airplane. Every time you start up, you need to go around doing all points check, make sure no leaking of any of your tri clamps or any of your clamp gaskets or any of your compression fittings or any of your taped up or doughed up fittings are leaking. It helps to have like a little cosmetic mirror. They'll fog up if they hit that steam hits it, and sometimes you can't see it. If you feel it, it'll burn the shit out of you. So sometimes, I've seen people use mirrors, go around it, wait, see if it fogs up anywhere around their joints, and I guess that's a good way to do it as well. But I got them, brother. And actually, I did it before I saw this, but you said that 20 minutes ago. I appreciate it, brother. Yeah, molecular sieve or vacuum distillation. Either way, because once alcohol touches air, it's hygroscopic, so it'll start sucking moisture out of the air and cutting itself down. Right, so you can't ever get 200 proof unless it's in a vacuum or it hadn't touched air. The second it touches air, it just like it just starts sucking the moisture right out of there like it's a desiccant, and they call that hygro with a G, hygroscopic. And 196, 198 is highest you'll ever get, and unless you run it through a sieve or if you vacuum distill. Yeah, I don't pump mine out. I let mine settle and I'll skim any spent grains that are still floating on the top. You can see the clear. There's not usually a lot of grains on the top, right? I don't know if you have a big, huge, 80-gallon drum or 50-gallon drums, you're going to have a little bit more on top than like, a 20. But I just take a strain and get all the spent grains off the top and pitch those. Those don't even go into a sour mash, right? There's nothing in those. They're totally spent. And then I let it settle, and clear out some. When I say clear, I'm not talking about like clearing up like water clear. I'm talking about going from a real white milky to a kind of a translucent kind of milky, right? And just letting the fine solids settle down. It's still going to be, not clear like some people like a jar of water or liquor. So some people are like, it's not clear yet. I'm like, man, I just mean that it's not like white, like milk, like it just stirred up, right? So I just siphon that off with a hose, and I'll get right down next to that grain bed and siphon off. Sometimes I'll tilt it and it'll, kind of the sludge will pick up, but I'll still get me a little pocket of clear. And I'll get all that I can siphoning. I think a lot of pumps tend to disturb it and stir it up a little bit more than I'd like. So after I do that, I'll just, either do, like say, try to strain out all the good grains that you can and save those for sour mashing and leave the yeast bed in the bottom and, save some of the yeast and the nutrients and then put it in a grain bag and just let it drip or use your mop wringer and get out all the liquids that you can. Then you got a pasty cake that's left over, and you can save that and use it for yeast and nutrients, and you can run some distilled water through it, kind of clean it up, run a sieve through it, kind of get as much of the organic matter out that you can, right? And just jar it up and save it. Every once in a while in the fridge, poke a few holes so it can breathe, doesn't build up pressure. And then every once in a while, just throw a pinch of sugar in there and make sure that it don't have a bunch foaming over in your fridge. You can put a bowl underneath it if you're worried. Good idea. But pretty dormant at that age, in that stage, you can just kind of feed it a little bit to kind of keep it going. What's going on, Matt? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, and you can put a brew bag around your pump, right? So I know a lot of people that put their pump down the brew bag and just tie it up and just drop it down in there. But again, it stirs a lot of stuff up. But that works pretty well. But yeah, I do. That's the way I do it. I siphon the clears off without disturbing anything, and then put the bag and sparge it, and then put those grains in your thumper, or you can just dump it all in there. I just find that yeast bed is good to kind of pull out, so I can have more yeast and nutrients for the next round, for to add to the back set and everything else to make a sour mash with. And after you get done with those grains, distilling it on the grains in your thumper like that, you can dump that right into your sour mash. That's where you want it. Finer than a crack, coarser than a meal. Actually, they say perfect. If you could take a corn kernel and divide it into 8 pieces, that'd be about the perfect crack size. But, it would take a really a good kind of grinder to grind it that consistency. Some people, I've been known I screen it, and get the fines out. You could use those fines for, making, cornbread, and use the coarser stuff to cook. Yes, you gonna work tonight? Working late shift? Using a red barrel? Do you have a red hose, man? You got to have that red garden hose, man. I don't know. Red barrel and red hose. Remember that. Yeah, 3 bags of corn. Take up a little bit of room. I'd say about a third. Good third of it. They say a barrel can hold about 450. So that's about a third. I think it sounds like a good idea, bro. Oh, I didn't show you on my. Look at the color on that, man. Yeah. That's got some pretty good color, doesn't it? And let's see what this acts like in a while. This is getting good color too. It's still got a little while to go, but that's pulling some pretty decent color. That's a apple brandy. Have to have a little sip this, make sure it's not over oaken, right? Got to sample it, right? Man, that smells good. That's some good shit right there. Man. Whew, that's good. That's something like you pull off a shelf right there. Yummy. Caramel. I'm getting that caramel out of that. Pretty good. That's going to win farm to bottle this year. The aged liquor. Let's see. Reducing the amount of corn to 100 pounds using liquid enzymes to get better conversion. It's if you're just like malting corn, yeah, definitely. But if you have a good barley that was properly malted, fully unmodified, fully malted, then it's going to be pretty close as far as conversion wise. more expensive using your malted barley. You're going to get different flavors using malted barley versus just the enzymes. The enzymes really don't give any flavor off. Not using any malted corn, you're getting a different flavor because of that as well. But you're not going to get that barley, flavor. So it's going to be a different distillate coming off. So it's going to be, it's kind of comparing Fuji and Honeycrisp apples. It's just different, same fruit, different kind of, but you're going to get a different flavor. So one's not necessarily better than the other. One's more simple, much more simplified than the other, and a lot of people in the hobby prefer simple. They don't. It's all what you do it for. Some people just can't go without the malted barley. They love that flavor. One of the benefits is, of course, you can use the 2-row versus the 6-row, get more flavor, probably have a lower percentage. You don't have to worry about conversion and diastatic powers and bricks and all that, and getting conversions. So you don't have to worry about that. Man, I have to have another drink to wash this frog down. Better slow down or I won't have anything left to make more of that. So you don't have to worry about the diastatic power. So you can use a 2-row, which is generally a little less expensive, a little easier to find. And it's used more in beer making than distilling. 6-row is traditionally a distiller's malt. And the 2-row is more of a Pilsner, a beer malt. But you get more flavor out of the 2-row. So if you don't have to worry about the diastatic power, then all of a sudden you can use different percentages. You don't need that 20% of 6. You can use 10% of 2, get the flavor that you want, and get good conversions. And you can supplement that by using the liquid enzymes as well. So you don't have to depend on them, and having the temperature just perfect is less critical. But you still want to do it, and get it done right. All right, brother. We just had a shot for you, man. That's all right. Have a shot of ginger ale, brother, and a smile. Good to see you in here, my friend. But yeah, if you do a bunch, totes are the way to go. Yeah, that's a lot of people's limiting factor is how much water that you can boil or get going at a time. So yeah, that's generally the limiting factor, and how much somebody cooks up or brews at a time is how much water. That's why I end up getting that big 30-gallon pot, because it's hard to get a whole bunch of water unless you have 5 turkey fryers and 5 10-gallon pots, sitting everywhere, and a keg over here and a pot over here. You have a bunch of different things. Probably a couple of kegs is if you're on a budget. I think that big pot cost me $200. They're like 300 something else. I bought years ago, but it's got like it's like a 2 thing. It's got the basket that goes inside. So it's like for Cajun boiling. That's what it's designed for, is like a big shrimp boil. So it has the basket that came with it. So it's about $200, it ain't cheap. And they're like 300 something now. So I bought it 8 years ago. And actually it might've been a little less than 2, but it's close to 2. And now they're 300 plus for this exact same thing, but they're pretty nice and nice to have. It's got the lid and the basket, and yeah, it's pretty cool. And that basket's nice, if you want to boil, in a bag, you can do that as well. So that works well. But a couple of kegs work real well as well, and that's a lot lower budget. I've seen people just cut the whole top out of the keg and just use the handles, Careful when that thing heats up, man. It's hot, so pick it up. But they just cut the top out of the keg. They don't even use it for distilling. That's just a boiling pot. You can pick kegs up for $35, 15-gallon pot for $35 stainless. It's pretty cheap. When you're looking at a 15-gallon pot, you're not going to find any cheaper. So if you got a plasma cutter or a jigsaw that you can just cut the top out, burr it with a Dremel, make sure it's not sharp edged anymore, or kind of roll it over if you can, or roll it and solder it and kind of make it safe. Or there's a lot of ways things you can do, but file it down. But yeah, it definitely a lot cheaper and works great. Yeah, that's a good point too, Clint. When you have a larger volume of water, it holds temperature more. It's a heat sink, right? So, but yeah, having something insulated definitely helps. You'll be there Saturday. All right, brother. Look me up. I'll be sitting over in the militia tent, sitting in the shade, man. I'll be pissed off because I'll be sober and I won't have nothing to drink. I'm not going to try to sneak nothing in. And I'm not much of a beer drinker, and I know they're going to be $5 a beer. So I'll be drinking water. But that night, I'll be drinking a little fire water. And you know it. I had to drink down the little water. On goes the fan. I turn it low. You probably can't hear it too bad. Yeah, so having a few kegs is handy. And with the steep method we talk about, you start with 45 gallons of water, and that's going to be 100 pounds of corn, right? 45 gallons will do 100 pounds of corn real well, just a hair over 2 pounds per gallon, which is exactly where you want it. So, dump one bag of corn in there and dump 15 gallons of boiling water over it, stir it up, let it start getting gelatinized, and get your second and third keg going. And as soon as you say those second keg's boiling good, dump another bag in there and dump that water over it, and have all 100 pounds of corn and 30 gallons of water, which is going to be very thick, but it's gelatinizing, right? And then you got that last 15-gallon keg, and you're going to be able to just kind of add a little bit of a time to maintain that 185, 90 degree Fahrenheit temperature, and just use that one for the next 90 minutes to just keep supplementing it with hot water, right? And that'll work. That'll get your corn gelatinized. Five 60-gallon pickle barrels. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, in the summertime, you definitely want to keep those black barrels in the shade, man, because it's a yeast killing hot if you don't. Because those black, man, it absorbs so much heat. But yeah, it's great in the wintertime for sure. 100 pounds of corn with 45 gallons, you should get a 1060, 1070 easy. No problem. And if you get perfect conversion, maybe a 1075, But it also depends on the corn and the efficacy of the enzymes. As they get a little older, they become a little less efficient. And if you note that you're getting less and less gravity, use more, to supplement it. So if you've had it a year and a half and you got half a bottle left and you've had it in that fridge and you've been using it, because it's a lot, it doesn't take much. So that those big pints that you get, that'll last you quite some time. So as you just, as it gets older, year and a half old, you're going to take twice as much, sometimes 3 times as much to get the same conversion as you did when it was new. But so it doesn't take much. And if you don't run a lot, don't buy those big, huge bottles. Don't ever buy big quarts of it and stuff. Cause you have to go through a lot before you need that, unless you're somebody that doesn't measure and just look, and just, yeah. 1060, 1075, 1080 is awesome. And if everything's perfect, and maybe, in the ratio, 2 pounds, I don't know. Can you get there with 2 pounds, Clint? Maybe might take the 2.25, 2.5 to get a little bit higher like that. But you don't need any more than that, really. 1060, 1070 is really good point to shoot for and be happy with. Most of your liquor and commercial distilleries is 1060. They don't care. Run, run, run. Back in the day, we probably got 1050, and we didn't get as much production, but it was a good flavor. So it's going to be a little less production, but a little more flavor. Yeah, I need a little break here once in a while. It's good to go out and party. I had a good break on 4th of July, Independence Day. We had a good time up here at Field Billy's. That was a good break. That was a good breakaway. I will say I didn't feel real good this evening. I wasn't feeling the best. I thought for a minute I was just going to go up and crawl in bed and lay down. After I ate, I don't feel good. I didn't feel real good this evening, but I was like, man, I ain't gonna be here Saturday. I gotta get mass on there. So I wasn't feeling real well when I first got started, but I feel better now. Yeah, I hope it does too. Yeah, I think, back in the day when I was using the powdered amylase, I was 3 pound a gallon kind of guy, because I wanted to get decent gravity reading, and powder wasn't efficient. The powdered amylase wasn't that efficient, and to get that 1060, 1075, it took more. It took more corn per gallon. Now that I'm using the liquid high temp alpha, I can get the same gravity readings using 2.25, 2.5. And I try to shoot for about 2.25. Two can sometimes be a little on the weak side, and then again, that could be my amylase get a little bit of age on it. But 2.25 is I like 2.25. That's my target number to go now. But yeah, when I was using that powdered alpha, I was having to do 3 to get a decent gravity. But now that I'm using a high temp and the liquid gluco, it's a lot better. But I was using powdered alpha and powdered gluco at the time, and nowhere near as good as the liquids. Yeah, actually, they did one case. I will talk about that a little bit because I want to make sure that everybody's aware of, and I'm not sure about this particular one, but I know the last one was basically Gentalian. It was basically, even if you had a distiller's license, so if you're permitted by the government, you're permitted by the state, you still couldn't distill at home, right? So nobody was permitted to distill at home at all, period, whether you were licensed or not. And, their argument was, well, we don't know if they're reporting everything, and if they're being on the up and up and reporting all the liquor that they're making, how do we know how much they're making? And the counter argument was, well, how do you know whatever home business is if they're reporting it right? If they're getting cash, how do you know that they're reporting their sales and they're being honest on their books? Why is distilling any different? And there's nothing that they could argue with. So we're going to make all home offices and home businesses illegal now, and left them with their thumbs, up their ass. There's nothing they could say to that. So they're like, well, so they got them. And, then they argued that taxation is the whole purpose of this. And you're limiting the amount of taxes you can collect by not allowing people to distill at home. So if taxation is the whole purpose in this, why would you limit the taxes and limit it to people not being able to do this as a home job, as opposed to, I worked at home my whole life, my job, and a lot of people do work from the home. So, there's nothing that they could say. So the government Supreme Court said, well, because it is a tax issue, then you are limiting yourself on taxes, and you're kind of, speaking on both sides. You can't say, oh, we're doing this so we can collect taxes, and then limit taxes by not allowing people to do it at home. So they started allowing you to legally distill at home if you had the licenses. So that's what that means. It doesn't mean everybody can do it at home. It's still not legal for everybody to do it at home or anything like that. I don't want people taking that away from it, because a lot of people were. A lot of people, oh, we can distill at home, it's legal now. No. I will say, if you join the Hobby Distillers Association, if a lot of times when courts do rule and you have a plaintiff like the Hobby Distillers Association taking it before a appellate court or Supreme Court, sometimes they will allow members to be permitted to do it, but not everybody else. So that's another good reason that they've done that with some gun laws, right? So like Texas, they wanted to have it where, if you buy a suppressor from a company in Texas and you don't take it or sell it outside of Texas, why should federal laws apply? We should just be able to buy it in Texas and use it in Texas without federal laws applying. And the Supreme Court had to kind of, okay, we agree, because it's not interstate. If the state makes it that law, then technically, because it was a stamped a tax issue, they really couldn't do it. Then all of a sudden now they've done away with the NFA tax on it because it's an unconstitutional tax. So now you can get your, silencers without the tax stamp, but you still have to go through the background checks and all the other stuff. So that kind of opened that up. But at one point in time, only people in Texas were able to get around that tax until they just eliminated the NFA tax on the suppressors. So I think something similar will happen in alcohol. It's going to follow pretty much the same steps as marijuana did. I would have 30, 40 years ago, if you asked me that marijuana would be recreational legal in some states and distillation would be federally illegal, but at least it's recreational permitted in Missouri and West Virginia and a few other states. But follow your state laws, and hopefully it'll follow the same path as marijuana did. And eventually you'll be able to do it in most of the states, except, for the really uptight woke ones that don't want people to do anything and have liberties. And they want to keep you under that government thumb. They like that big government. And so some states won't ever allow it. Kentucky probably won't be one of those, because there's so many, distilling industries, and there's so much money spent to politicians from these big distilleries here. So they're going to fight that. They don't want the average Joe distilling at home and not buying their product, right? So they're gonna fight it here in Kentucky, I'm sure, and in Tennessee as well. Get on a Facebook Marketplace, and you can get you some good yellow Den. I saw a dude $7 for 50-pound bags of wheat. No, yeah, wheat and corn, 50 pounds, $7. I need to get over there. The mirror. Oh man, am I that far behind? Yeah, that's a good way to check it, man. They take that little cosmetic mirror and go all the way around it and look for leaks. Yeah, 3 pounds a gallon will get you 108 easy for sure. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm guilty, man. I mean, and well, Clint just talked about doing a thin mash earlier. I mean, hell, I did thin mashes for 30 years, man. I was talking about it Saturday. There's nothing wrong with it. And everybody, every time you talk about using sugar, it's like heresy to the distilling industry. Is like you get scorned and talked down to, and I can't believe you're still using sugar. Well, I still make sugar shine. I mean, I'll still throw some damn sugar and oyster shells and a little bit of nutrients in there and just make sugar shine. If I'm just want some liquor and I ain't got none to go, hell, yeah. Not so much now, but used to. Hell, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, every once in a while, you just want some damn liquor. You don't want to cook corn. You don't want to do all this shit. You got a big old bag of sugar in there and plenty of water. Why not? I mean, I don't let people dictate what I do, you know, and I don't let them browbeat me. I don't give a fuck what they think. Really, when it boils down to it, okay, well, you be you and I'll do me, and you don't worry about it, right? But everybody's up everybody else's ass these days, man. They gotta, you know, run your business for you. I don't like that shit at all, man. I'm old school when it comes to that. You do you, I'll do me, and shut the fuck up. I'm gonna do me. I don't need you browbeating and all that. It's like when I talk about using bread yeast, oh my God, don't tell people to use that bread yeast. That's the worst shit. No, it's perfectly fine to use. I used it for 30 years. Is there better yeast? Absolutely. Is there better yeast for beginners to use? No. You know, are you going to tell a beginner to go spend $200 on some, you know, Hornadal Kvecki, you know, or whatever? No. You know, because they're going to screw up a few. They're going to denature the yeast. They're not going to save it. You know, it's going to get expensive. And you're like, well, shit. By the time I bought that heirloom corn, I spent $200 on that yeast. And it's like, shit, I've spent $80 a gallon on that. That's $20 a quart. Hell, I just could have just bought some Evan Williams and not had to worry about a thing, you know? So, yeah. So I do me, and don't let anybody tell you, you know, nobody's going to browbeat you here about putting some sugar in it. Because I damn sure do when I have to. And I, you know, like my potatoes I just talked about earlier, you know, I didn't have enough potatoes, you know. Was I going to run to the store and get more potatoes or just throw a little sugar in there? I looked at that bag of sugar and I'm like, yeah, we're using that. And it smelled great. It's going to be good. What's going on, brother? Good to see you. I know I'm way behind. Shit, I'm way behind. Clint, damn it. I get further behind when you're here than when you're not, damn it. Right. Right. And a lot of that low flocculent is a lot of times your wine yeast, you know, they don't like that big, you know, yeast bed. So they tend to be a more lower flocculent, whereas like a distiller's yeast or bread yeast tends to be a little higher. Yeah. Awesome. Did you put any oats in that peach cobbler? Or lacto? Yeah, just press it out, man. Just bag it up and break out the old mop wringer. Give it the old ring. But yeah, when you got higher percentages like that, you're definitely going to have a big, huge, you know, yeast bed with lots of grain sitting on it. You know, it's not like fruit and water, you know, and a lot of sugar where you have like a yeast bed like that and, you know, tons of, but yeah, I always siphon off the clears and then put that in one 5-gallon plastic water bottle. And then I'll press the others and fill those full. You know, I got like 10 of those 5-gallon bottles. I ferment a lot of wine and stuff in them. Number 10 stopper will fit in those just perfect. Yes, sir. That's good for a laugh. Oh, it's funny. That's all you need. All right. When I run my cobbler, would I be better off loading the kettle with as much clear mash, 10 to 15 or 15, 20 pounds of fresh peach, 25 pounds? There you go. Got them oats in there. 430, 2 bottles of peach puree, and then load the first thump with solids from the mash. That worked fine. Either way, you can experiment with it, Matt. I would probably maybe save the peach puree and some of that syrup and put that in a infuser with the spices and let that steam go through that and kind of heat it up and you'll have to get your experience with the spice. Some of these spices are going to carry over much more and become very dominant, and you'll have to learn your ratios the hard way pretty much. Cloves carry over a lot. Cinnamon carries over a lot. A lot of the spices will be really dominant. Some not so much. So you'll learn your spices as you go, making gins and spiced rums. But yeah, it's. I would probably say that if the peach puree, I'd save that to the side and use that in the infuser along with some of those syrups. But yeah, the mash bill sounds good with the peaches and oats. Definitely be awesome. Yeah, I've got a big strainer I sits right on, what is it I set that on? It fits perfect, but I can set it on my, what is it? I guess my barrel, and it's got like 2 hooks on the front, and then it's got a long handle in the back, and it'll sit right in my ferment barrel just perfect. Or is it? Maybe it's my buckets. My buckets, and then I pour stuff through it as I go, and it strains. It works out real well. Yeah, it's a bucket, and that works really well. But it's one of those kitchen strainers. It's about that big around and got a wire handle with the wood in the middle of it, and it's got like 2 little ears on the front that hook, and you can set it right on the pot and just pour into it. It works on the buckets real well. Yeah, and it's good for skimming. I'm going to be using it later this week or next week to skim off some lacto. It's my lacto skimmer. Well, I mean, you can still be a craft distiller. The thing about it is everybody thinks that you have to mash ratio wise to your pot. So you got a 20-gallon pot, you used to have a 30-gallon fermenter. You can get about 20 gallons out of it pretty easy with your cap and space and all that. And each run you can get in there. But it keeps, right? So you can just siphon off, load it up anytime you want, put the air lock on there, and it'll be fine for another month or so, or a week, few weeks. And you want it, as long as you keep it kind of cool, go in there and, siphon some off anytime you want to make a run. I know people do that. That way you just have to mash in once and run 5 or 6 times out of it, right? If you got a 50-gallon still, you get probably 4 runs out of a 250-gallon tote. You're going to fill it all the way up, right? And then you're going to have grains and other things in the bottom. So you're going to get maybe 4 runs out of it, 3.5, or 3 good solid runs, depending on what it is. And then, just mash in again. But again, it comes to how much water can you boil? That's the hard part. Yeah, that's about a barrel full in it. Have to almost fill you a barrel of 80 proof. Of course, I wouldn't want to go into the barrel at that proof. What's going on, Steve-O? Good to see you, brother. You're not making it? Yeah. That's a shame, bro. Yeah, it's tough. It gets expensive and time consuming to go a lot of the festivals. It's pretty good drive for me. It's about 5 hour drive. So that's for me that's getting a long drive. And drives back because I'm gonna be hung over as hell. I always am. Last time I went, man, I was hung over for 3 days. I felt horrible for 3 days. If I get that bad off, I won't be here Tuesday after either. I was green, bro. I was feeling bad, bad, bad. I was drunk Sunday and Monday. I was still drunk the next day. Yeah, and my hungover. I was hungover till Wednesday, right? Yeah, it wasn't good. Yeah, definitely keep it refrigerated. And even in the refrigerator, it's only going to last you a year or two, and well, it'll last longer, but you have to use more of it, right? And you'll notice it becoming less efficient. Yep, for sure. For sure. Definitely will. What's going on, Doug? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, we got to see everybody check in. There's a few hadn't checked in yet, but we're getting there. I hadn't seen Miss Tammy yet or Lisa. There's a few others. Yeah, I wish you could make it, brother. I damn sure want to look forward to tasting some of that peach. And if you have to sweeten it up, try using brown sugar with the peaches and the oats. Yeah, make a peach rum. Yep, that'll make it cobbler a little more interesting too, especially with the spice. Yeah, looks like Louisiana and Texas going to get hit hard. Arkansas, I guess, too. It's already been flooding in Texas, hasn't it? Yeah, that's not good. We've been getting a lot of rain up here too. We had a big, huge storm pass through, went into Tennessee. I was hoping to see a lot of it going into the Carolinas, but it's like when it hits that line along the mountains, man, it just dissipates and it's not hitting the Carolinas. They're in a drought. So I was hoping to see them get a little bit of rain. Yeah, it's looking like it's going to, and it's not moving fast, so it's gonna stall out and just sit there. We've been getting so much rain. I had to put the pump in the pool. I had to pump water out. Yeah, I think everybody should have to come to Santa's School of Home Distilling and pay me a $150 $200 fee and get a certification and learn all the safeties. But I think it's a good idea, don't you, Clint? Yeah, yeah. I think that'd be a good idea. Maybe I'll have to talk to the Supreme Court and maybe we can work out a deal. I have to talk to Chief Roberts about that. Yeah, I don't think I'd be talking to Kentucky Brown. I'll have to talk to Chief Roberts. Maybe he sounds like he could get that through. That'd be an awesome idea. But I agree. Just kind of like like concealed carry used to be, and you know, trying to think of something that you would do at home that would still require you to. Well, like flying a drone. If you have a drone that's over 249 grams, 250 grams, you have to get a license to fly it because there's some dangers involved and you have to learn the discipline of where you can't fly it, things like that. So, similar to that, you just got to learn the safety and in a lot of states, they used to teach a lot of hunting safety and gun safety in the schools, and now I think they're kind of getting back to that, which is awesome and very important. It teaches kids at a young age how to respect the guns and what they can do. And, where I grew up, we kind of grew up that way and knowing, hunting from a young age and shooting from a young age, made me a hell of a lot better shot. I'm a pretty good shot. Um, but learning that at a young age and learning the discipline of it, and you can definitely tell when you're in areas that don't have that, um, kids don't understand, and they take these guns out and end up shooting somebody, and they see it in video games, they do it all the time, and they end up killing somebody, and they don't really understand, right? When they're that young and they're very impressionable, and they make a big mistake, a lifelong mistake that'll haunt them the rest of their life, or do something stupid, or an accident, just taking it out and playing with it and accidentally shooting somebody. So I think it's pretty important that they learn safety. Yeah, it happens to all of us. Happens to them all. I know quite a few people that's had this something very similar to what happened with O'Sheen. Except he just got scalded. I've seen others start fires. Well, wasn't there to visually see it, but had buddy start a fire in his garage. He went out and smoked a cigarette. Next thing you know, one of the little clamps on the beaver, the wire wasn't in, so the clamp wasn't clamped all the way down, and it was spitting, alcohol vapors directly on his gas burner, and it became a flamethrower, and it was all over his roof. Of course, a lot of people say that can't happen. That's bullshit. That don't happen. They don't know. There's a lot of dumb people out there in all these groups that'll say that can't happen. It don't happen. It ain't like that. And they just have no clue what they're talking about, which is another reason why we're here. So you can learn from somebody with some intelligence. I'm not trying to be egotistical or anything, but there's a lot of dumbasses out there professing to know a lot that don't know shit. And a lot of people acting like they've run their whole lives and never run the first time, and you can tell them what they say. Not good. Not good. A lot of bad information out there. And that's one of the reasons that I'm here to pass on, maybe not necessarily just the facts, but, opinions and stuff too. And some opinions, are like assholes. Everybody's got one, but there's, like I say, there's good, better, and best ways of doing things. And if we can, try to eliminate, I've learned everything I've learned in the past. Well, no, I shouldn't say most of the thing I've learned in the past was from making mistakes. I've made every mistake in the book at least 3 or 4 times before I learned the hard way. I've learned just about everything the hard way. And, it gets frustrating, but I was pretty young when I made those mistakes. I didn't give a shit. Had I been older and just spent thousands of dollars on a copper steel and make those mistakes and scorch and ruin and stuff, and the first 3 or 4 or 5 runs, scorch the shit out of it and just turn out trash, it'd be like, a lot of people give up. They're like, fuck it, this isn't for me, man, this sucks. And it's because they just didn't seek out the help and to they try to learn the hard way. And some people, you got to really stick with it, and keep, got to be stubborn and just bow forward and strive to get better. And, but there are, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's definitely, and I'm not going to get in the groups, and I see it every day, and I'm not going to get in there and say, you're full of shit. I'd love to just do this. I would, but everybody would hate me, but I would love to just have the bullshit check mark, just a red stamp, bullshit, just to stamp each post that are complete bullshit. And I'd run out of ink pretty quick. There's a lot of good information out there that's passed. A lot of times I'll give them a thumbs up and they're passing on good information, but I'm not going to put up the big mean face or any of that shit when people get it wrong. I just have to scroll on because I can't do it to every group. And I don't want to be that know-it-all asshole. Come here, what does he know? It just pisses people off. It doesn't teach them. So it's just not the right approach. So I'd rather get them in here and let them know and let them see that I'm sincere. I'm not trying to be a know-it-all. I'm just trying to help. And I want everybody to enjoy the hobby and not make a lot of mistakes I made. Oh yeah, I mean, for a small scale, for somebody that's just wanting to make a drink, and has a little bit of a column, and they can crank it out high proof and proof it down. It's not so bad, especially if you can do a little infusion on your sugar shine and maybe run it once and get you a good high proof vodka and proof it down to 60 proof or so, and then run it through again and infuse it with some flavors. I've got some that really didn't have hardly any bite at all. Couple few runs, hell yeah. Yeah, that's way to get that creamy, that cobbler effect. That oats will help give you the cobbler. I got you, bro. I'm just kidding with you. I have gotten behind tonight, though. I did. Oh, let me see. Oh, hell. Oh, yeah. Looking good, bro. That looks awesome. I like it. Yeah, Matt's got some nice setups. Faux show. Third stick. I'm telling you, man, that cinnamon, it can become overpowering. Clove and cinnamon are both. Just all corn. It's just, it's just corn and sugar. Yeah, it's good though, free. Hey, it tastes better when it's free. I can tell you. It tastes. I mean, it might taste the same, but got a bigger smile on your face when you get it for free. So it's always better when it's free. The best mash is a free mash or a cheap mash. Yeah, I like dextrose better. The yeast beet sugar is probably the worst. Yeah, the yeast tend to prefer, and you don't get as many off flavors. And you don't get as much pH crashing with the dextrose. A little bit less organic acid creation, but yeah, it's. I try not to use too much, but like I said, it's been a while, but yeah, it wasn't always just thin mashes. Hell, sometimes I just do sugar with some bran flakes. For those that don't know, if you don't have any nutrients, like we preach using the dead yeast bed, that makes a great free nutrient. Your wheat, not wheat, bran flakes do really well. So, and it gives a good flavor, and it's a good, just crush them up. Get the store brand, don't have to be Kellogg's but if you don't have anything and you just run to the store and get a box. If you're doing about a 50-gallon run, a box, fine. Just crush up a box, grind it up into fine, and throw it in there, and it's fine. About $1 something a box. Cheap stuff. Pretty cheap nutrient. But yeah, if you can save that yeast bed, because that's the best. That's the best nutrients: yeast hulls and dead yeast. That's Fermo for those that don't know. That's the Fermo that you pay a lot more for. Is this dead yeast for sure? I will. Yeah, I'll send it to you, bro. Did Lisa wait? I didn't see her come in either. Did she post something? Did I scroll past it? Or did you? So I don't get notifications. I noticed that I think when you watch it on YouTube, it'll pop up so and so log. I don't get those. So when somebody pops in, I don't see it. That's crazy. I didn't see Lisa pop in. But hi, Lisa. If you're here, I missed you popping in. I might not be getting it all too. You see. Yeah, they get some pretty bad ones in Florida, man. Yeah, and just be prepared to put roofs on more often than your shingles don't ever get old. Let's just put it that way. If you live in Florida, your shingles don't get to 20, 30 years old before the winds blow them off. And you have to, so get good insurance. Yeah, hopefully that storm will blow over. Right. Amen. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of educated idiots out there, and it's, that's a perfect way of putting it. Educated idiots. And, when you talk to them, they speak intelligently. And then all of a sudden they start talking about certain topics. And you're like, wait a minute. I thought this person was intelligent. How can they be so fucking stupid? So I guess not everybody has a well-rounded knowledge. Sometimes I guess their knowledge is just so focused, and that when you're talking about something on topic, they're perfectly fine. But when it gets outside the box, it's like they're rattled. They don't know shit. And it's like, wow, this is an imbecile, an educated imbecile. There's a lot of them out there. And, and I've known people that are professionals and, and you hold them in high esteem, some attorneys, doctors and stuff. And, when you talk about law or medicine, they're Johnny on the spot. They know everything and just can throw out the big words and everything. It just sounds so impressive. But when you talk about other things, it's like, wow, this person's an idiot. They just must live inside a bubble, and I guess that's what they do. They just get so focused on what they do. They just don't learn common sense, right? It evades them. It's crazy, especially these days. Yeah, we want to save everybody headaches, and we want your liquor to get better because we're tired of drinking heads at these festivals. We're tired of drinking, all this sugary post flavored heads at the festival. So we want you to do better. That's funny. I'm kidding, but yeah, we do want you to, make better, and you enjoy the hobby more, and it promotes the craft and it keeps it alive, and home distilling is going to be big in the future. I think it's going to make a comeback in a big way. I think it already has. And, that's one thing I can say for the Moonshiner Show is it has gained a lot of interest. I've, of course, been into it my whole life. I've always loved it. Always had a passion and interest in it since my childhood. But it was a dying thing, and most people looked at you a little bit differently. Oh, you're a moonshiner, you make liquor. Instantly, you got put in a certain category, right? Nowadays, it's, there's a lot of doctors, lawyers, electricians, plumbers, managers, everybody, doing their distilling and winemaking and beer making at home. So it's more, mainstream now. It's not just a bunch of old hillbillies, used to, it was never in the cities and all these other places. It was just something those folks do up in the hills, right? So it's changed. It's changed a lot. So it's making a comeback. It's good. I think the show helped. And I think we help. I think having all these groups on Facebook and help groups and passing recipes and sharing, knowledge and sharing the hobby with friends and and more people getting into it. A lot of people looking into it more for survival. And making hand sanitizers was big during COVID, and opened some eyes, and people started thinking, well, what if we had a big, huge pandemic and we weren't able to leave the house for a year? We got stuck at home and we had to distill water, and the water was bad, and we had to get these pathogens out of the water, or we would die. These start zombie, all these other things start going off in their head, and it's good because that's, I'm not saying the zombie apocalypse, but it's good to have some knowledge about these things under your belt. And I try to talk about it every week. Canning, learning to put food up and learn how to grow your own food and kind of live off the grid a little bit, because I really worry about if something were to happen, a disaster of any kind, how people would get by. And people start getting crazy. They start getting hungry. They got hungry families. They got little babies crying because they're hungry. Man does some crazy things when you get to that point, So if you had your survival teachings, you'd learn to go out and, plant a garden and fend for yourself. Unfortunately, most people are like, I ain't got time for a garden. I'm going to take your skin and I'm going to go get me some, and they go start shooting up people who've hoarded and prepared for it. So it's ugly. I can see it getting ugly. But just like in the past when we've had some freezes, and ice storms, trucks couldn't get in, supplies couldn't get in, shelves. I mean, hell, all it has to do is weatherman has to say it's going to snow an inch or two, and every loaf of bread, every gallon of milk, every tub of butter is gone from the store, right? And then the next thing you know, toilet paper shortages, and and it's like, wow, that happened quick, right? So yeah, you got to prepare and store lots of toilet paper. We learned from COVID. That's one of the first things. It's always been the milk and the bread and the butter and and the bottled water, but now we like toilet paper. Don't forget the toilet paper, because that's crazy. I would have never thought about that, but yeah. So once stuff starts flying off the shelves, if you don't have a freezer full and you don't have canned corn and canned green beans and canned fruit, and you can buy the cans if you don't want to put it up, but learning to put it up and have a garden, and yep, it's definitely something everybody needs to learn and know. Yep. That's when I learned, says, before the internet ever dreamed of. Only guidance I had was a Foxfire book, and that was teaching very basics. And I think I did get I don't know if I got my recipe from the Foxfire book. It's so long ago, but thin mash recipe. Pound, probably is a pound. I don't know if it's a pound and a half, but or a pound a gallon and a pound and a half. Oh yeah. It's bad info. I learned to steal today is pretty much, it's a lot harder stealing it. Well, I was thinking, damn, I guess there's cameras now where there didn't used to be, and yeah, it's harder to steal. Okay, that's funny. What's going on, Monty? Good to see you, brother. I love me some oats, man. I love oats. I put them in about everything, brother. And if you're like we were talking to Matt earlier, and anytime you're wanting to get a cobbler effect, right? When you're like making apple pie and you want to get that crust effect, or a cobbler, blueberry cobbler, apple cobbler, whatever, peach cobbler, adding oats gives you that soft cobbler, and it can pull that cobbler off. Oats and lacto both can help soften it up, give you that, that flavor. Helps a lot for sure. But yeah, I love using oats. Just if you use a high percentage of them, it can get a little gooey, but I don't use it in a high percentage. I use it just to help soften things up. But I most, unless it's like a brandy or something that may end up as just a wine, they don't get the oats. But most everything will definitely get the oats. Right, right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably over 90. Probably over 90. And you guys, there's a lot of guys here with a lot of knowledge that ain't gonna let us misspeak. I think I was wrong. I was wrong about. I can think a thing or two that I was wrong about. You know, I was definitely wrong about tomato paste. Tomato paste. I was a tomato paste hating fool. Like, nope, tomato paste and raisins to an extent, but I always knew that raisins would give a good flavor and mouthfeel. So I thought that was about the only benefit you would get from it, but using them as a nutrient, no. Tomato paste, no, it's not a nutrient at all. It's no good. It's not worth anything. It's nothing. Blah, I never use them. Well, I did some reading and I found there is some benefit from the tomato paste, and there's some bad. The benefits, of course, is the biotins and the zinc and other minerals and nutrients and vitamins that you can get out of it that are fine for your fermentation. It actually helps the yeast. It's beneficial. Does help lower the pH a little bit. So it's all beneficial. It's not going to necessarily impart good flavor. I wouldn't put it in a good brandy. But it's doesn't have the yeast assimilable nitrogen or the free amino nitrogen that you need. And that was what I was trying to get at my whole time, but I didn't realize when I was saying that it's not good for anything, that was wrong. It actually does have some benefits, but it still doesn't have the anandin you need. So it's not considered a nutrient. It's a supplement. And you have to be careful how you use it because it's not necessarily going to impart good flavors and everything you make. So that was something early on I was definitely wrong about. So there's certain, we learn, and there's something else I was wrong about. I can't remember. So maybe that's good. Maybe I won't be wrong again. Hopefully I don't forget the same thing twice, but that would be the first time. Right. And Greg, we can take it, from the basics. I can get scientific with it. I try to teach the basic because that's what most people are interested in, just the basics. They don't really want to, see pictures of, the actual starches and what they look like under an electron microscope. And they not interested in seeing a lot of the, scientific edge of it and talking about the science of it. Pretty much a lot of people, if you just give them a good recipe and instructions on how to follow it, they'll follow that recipe and they'll do really well. But I do think that some people that are wanting to take it to the next level, that are serious about going into, a commercial end of it, would benefit from learning some of the science and the whys and the hows, and we can kind of take it to that level. Don't want to get too complex because a lot of people tend to well, this is over my head. I'm and they'll just kind of start daydreaming and thinking about other things because you're really not piquing their interest. It's kind of like I used to do with math until it clicked. It's like, oh God, here we go, math. And I just start thinking about other things and eventually it clicked. But yeah, we can get into some of the science of it and talk about how some of the, here's a pretty good example. I like this picture. Enzymatic hydrolysis of starches. Is it going to go or not? Okay, here we go. So here's, kind of something when I talk about some of the sciences, talk about how different enzymes hydrolyze some of these starches into oligosaccharides and dextrins. You'll hear me talk about oligosaccharides, and that's anything between 3 and 12 molecule strings, right? So you'll see here on the right, the green, that's where it breaks, right? That's where it gets cleaved. The technical term is cleaving. That bond, that glycosidic bond between the glucose molecules, it's called a glycosidic bond. We can get scientific. So that gets cleaved, right, by the enzymatic action. Now, if you'll notice, a lot of these enzymes have a certain shape that will help penetrate and get into these complex sugars or starches and break them down. Now, strangely enough, it only shows the amylopectin. It's not showing just the pectin. These are all amylopectin, which is a branched as opposed to a straight starch. Let me show you the picture of those so you'll understand what I'm talking about there a little better. So amylopectin you'll see in the middle. The glycogen, that's just in our bodies. That's an animal. So that we really don't deal with that. That's in our bodies. But you'll see the amylopectin when I'm talking about how it's branched, and the amylose is just a straight string. It'll spiral, but that's like a string of pearls that's laying down, and some of it's just overlapped. It naturally wants to spiral a little bit. But certain enzymes will get into those differently and break them down differently. Let me show you some. I like using pictures because I can talk about it, and it's a little bit better when you show the pictures. So, for example, cellulase. So this is a picture of a cellulase, and you can see how it's kind of linear shaped, and it's shaped longwise. So that breaks down cellulose. Let me show you this cellulose, what it looks like. Hopefully I have a picture of that. And you can see how that enzyme would naturally, well, there's a few enzymes there. Pectinase does the same thing. Pectinase has a lot of linear, and I don't have that picture. Damn it, I thought I had that. Let me see here. I know I've got that picture somewhere. I've talked about it before. Okay, here we go. Perfect. So you can see here, see how the cellulose, now that's a horrible picture, but at the bottom, you see how that cellulose is linear. It's lined up in rows. You can see how that cellulase enzyme would intertwine with that perfectly and break it down. So any place where this enzyme contacts the complex starch, it cleaves or it debranches at that spot, and it denatures. So that the rest of that little branch of whatever, that little spiral, just dies off, and then you got another little branch of the enzymes that will touch another spot. So it's kind of a random, especially the alpha, when it's it basically cleaves, and where the gluco and the beta glucanase cause debranching. So a little bit different, but yeah, you can see how each works on it. That's a horrible picture. I need to find a better picture than that though. But yeah, it's very interesting how these work and how they break down the starches, because without that, you're not going to, I like this picture. Let me add that back up here. So your alpha, you can see it's an endo enzyme. So it's going to cleave from the outside in. It's an exo enzyme. So it cleaves from the outside in, exo enzyme. And you can see at each of these how it breaks it down. Some disaccharides, some trisaccharides, some oligosaccharides, 4 or 5. And anything more than 2, your yeast can't consume. So any individuals your yeast consume, but anything that's greater than 2, it's not going to be able to consume. So your yeast is not going to be able to consume 1, 2, 3, 4 of these enzymes. And they didn't color the bottom one green. They should have colored one of those green on the bottom. But anyway, so there's going to be 3 of these that are going to be oligosaccharides. The rest are going to be disaccharides. I don't see any monos on there at all, but every once in a while, it's like that blind squirrel. It'll chop off an individual. But you can see after you add the gluco, every bit of it gets debranched, right? And that's an endoenzyme. So it goes from the inside out, and it debranches all these inner ones that you see that are 4 or 5 long, right? Those are oligosaccharides and dextrins. And that bottom one, that 2, that's a limit dextrin. It's just unfermentable, and it'll take a glucose to break that down. So you can see how much each of these will break down. Is like the glucosidase below it. It only chops off some of the very end ones, very endo exo enzyme that just breaks down the very end ones and nothing else. Not very efficient, is it? That's why you don't see a lot of people using it. Glucanase, you don't see a lot of people using that delta glucanase because it doesn't really debranch a lot, and it just makes a bunch of oligosaccharides and dextrins. Cyclomaltodextrins and data glycotransferase. That's you don't even isoamylase. Don't see a lot of that being used. Pulinase, you do see some pulinase being used for certain things, but maltodextrin. So you know, when we talk about what is produced when you break down these starches, it's not just sugars, right? You're getting sugars and you're getting maltodextrins. And sometimes those maltodextrins become limit dextrins, and you have to have a good glucose to break those up, right? Because most other enzymes aren't going to break those down. Beta glucanase will do almost what the glucoamylase here. It makes almost all of them green, but you're going to have some disaccharides in there, right? Still. That's why the glucose is really probably the best finishing enzyme to really debranch everything down to a monosaccharide. So we can do a little bit of science and explain some things scientifically. Some people just fell asleep while I said that. Some people are interested in it and some people aren't. Yeah, I agree. William. That especially when you talk about multiple sticks, that stuff. The first time I used it, I created pretty much the hot, what do they call that? The fire. Yeah, it can get quite spicy. ATF's entered the chat. Well, welcome to the show, my friends. Yeah, we learn all the time, don't we, Clint? We learn every show. There's people bring in, and that's, people doing things that we've never thought about doing, and that's trying combinations. There's so many millions of combinations out there, man. It's just like math. Once you start thinking how many ingredients are there out there, and then how many combination can all those ingredients make, it's like crazy, right? And everybody's looking for one that nobody's ever tried. So good luck with that, because they've been distilling for a long, long time. And I don't know. There are some combinations that's never been tried, but you have to think outside the box. Yeah, you'll never know it all. And by the time you know it all, you're so damn old you forget half of what you knew. So you'll never know it all. Yeah, and the same here. There's certain things like, calculus. I was decent. I had a little math block, and then when I was taking algebra, and finally it clicked, right, and I understood, and I was able to do well in algebra, and I was, did great. But then came calculus, and to this day, I have no idea what he's even talking about. Not a clue. Absolutely. I got nieces that couldn't tell you when Columbus discovered America, and couldn't tell you basic stuff, but can do that freaking calculus like no tomorrow, man. Little freaking rain women, and just brilliant. So, it's just what sometimes our mind works differently for certain things than others. And mine really wasn't calculus inclined. It just blew me away. that was probably that was the big reason I didn't go to med school, was because calculus kept me out of med school. Did moonshiners? Yeah, I mean, it got a lot of people going. So you let it steep. I tell you what, if steeping is one thing, but you put that shit in a thumper or an infuser, it gets hot. Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good. I like Cyrus. You know, Cyrus is great. I like watching some of his stuff. He does a lot of off the grid stuff, and I like that. I like watching a lot of off the grid type living and living off the land and survival type stuff. I'm really into that. You know, I've always been into that, so I enjoy watching a lot of those too. But yeah, it's there's some good stuff out there, and some awesome stuff. And there's also some people that are making videos that you know, and I give them props. You know, we were talking about one earlier in on the militia. Guys making some corn liquor. He used about 3.5 pounds per gallon. You know, had no idea. He's eyeballing everything. Not the first measurement one. He did use some alpha amylase, but didn't mention glucose or schweimadine glucose amylase. Talked about scalding the corn instead of scorching it, called it scalding, and didn't cook his corn at high enough temperature and didn't hold it near long enough, and supposedly got this great, you know, conversion. I don't know. I don't see how. There's a lot of unfermentables in that. You can bet your ass, because it's gonna look like that picture with just the alpha, right? There's gonna be maybe 3 or 4 that are gonna be fermentable, but the rest are gonna be oligosaccharides or limit dextrins, and it ain't gonna do. But he's on there. He's an authority, you know, telling everybody, and he's got 250,000 people following him. You know, so he's misinforming 250,000 people. Good kid, you know. He's learning. He's trying to get out there and make a name for himself. But you know, I'd like to pull him to the side. I don't want to do it in public. A lot of people want to show him in public what they know and all that, but I'd like to be able to talk to him maybe and go through a few things and kind of educate him. And I've done that on quite a few people. If I see him making a video and a few things that they're putting out there, it's just not an opinion, but it's factually wrong, like not using glucoamylase along with your iTemp alpha. That's just something you definitely need without the malts or anything, you know. I'll send them a little message or something. I'm not going to try to call them out in public and and you see so many people doing that, you know, they try to boost themselves up by, you know, this is what I know. I want them to correct them, you know, in front of everybody. And I'm going to show them I know more than that person. No, there's no call for that. I try to support everybody and build people up. And if I see somebody that, you know, might be doing something a little bit factually wrong, you know, I'll send them a little note and message and say, hey, you know, I noticed you were talking about this, and you know, here's some sources, you know, and might want to, you know, think about this, you know, and try to be tactful. You don't have to be an ass about it, you know, or a know-it-all, you know, because I don't want them putting out the bad information. I don't want other people getting bad information, but to people that do know, and they kind of lose a little credibility when you say certain things. It's like, oh, well, they don't know as much as I thought they did. So I want to make sure that they're, you know, not putting information out there. So some people that may know may look at them, you know, in a different light. I just try to be helpful. A lot of people read me wrong, you know, and that's okay too, because I am pretty direct, especially when I type. So I definitely like talking to somebody when I'm talking about something, because I type directly, and sometimes I come across, you know, that they don't get the inflection, they don't see the sincerity, and it comes across wrong because I kind of type and speak directly. So it's sometimes best if I can talk to them. Yeah, apple pie or cherry bounce or watermelon crowd. How's the show? Right. And you know, it's to them, moonshine is like, you know, there's vodka, there's gin, there's rum, and there's moonshine. There's, whiskey and bourbon, and moonshine is like a specific distillate. That's it's in its own class. And no, moonshine's anything that's not taxed. It could be a gin, it can be a rum, it can be a whiskey, white dog, it could be brandy, it could be anything. But, to most people, moonshine is like a specific type of alcohol. That's funny. So when I teach people that, that talk about this, never, that have no clue, they're like, oh, really? Yeah. It's, there's, most moonshine is a corn liquor. It's a white dog, but there's a lot of rum moonshine, brandy moonshine, vodka moonshine, a lot of difference. Yeah, it has. Right. That's a fact. And you can tell by looking at my belly, it's been a long time since I've gone without any. But yeah, it's you grow up in East Kentucky or rural Appalachia, and times they were different, man. I grew up in a different place in a different time, and my family, started out fairly poor. My grandparents, especially on my dad's side, didn't have a lot of money. They ran a little post office and general store and had a farm, and they were pretty well to do, I guess, when you compared to the rest of the people in their community. They had that little store and post office there, so they were a little bit better off, but still poor. Grandparents on the other side had a little bit of money. My grandmother on my mom's side, they had a little bit more money. They had bigger businesses. And one was a dry goods store. And they did well. And the others had one of them was in banking. Hell, one of them was in furniture making in the Carolinas, and one of their children was the Willie Clay Call, right? My grandmother was a Call before she was married, and a Greer and a Call. And the Greers were the ones that had the dry goods stores, so they did well on that side. But my grandfather, his family was poor. They didn't have much. He started out in the coal mines, working his ass off, and then went into oil prospecting and other things and did a lot better. But yeah, my grandmother, I guess on my mom's side, her family probably had the most money. And I guess a prominent person, my great uncle, was a vice admiral, the highly decorated vice admiral in the Navy. Yeah. Marshal Raymond Greer. Read about him. He was a badass, highly decorated. They were Shriners too, and into the a lot of people say the Illuminati, but what is that? Shriners and trying to think of I can't think of it right now, but it's not the Illuminati. What is it? Not Shriners. Maybe it was just. Oh, Freemason. Yeah. I was like, Freemason. Yeah, they were Freemason, pretty high level. So they were in the government locally. My grandfather was a mayor at one time, But on my dad's side, my uncle went to dental school, and my dad went to law school, and my uncle did neither. He farmed, but he was probably one of the smartest of the three. But he didn't. He invented a cutter, a steel cutter, using TRS Tandy computers back in the 80s, the first computers that came out. He never had computer language knowledge or anything, and he learned how to program this thing to run this motorized steel cutting. He had several patents, and brilliant man. Probably the smartest of the three, and never really applied himself at all. If he'd gone to MIT, man, he'd probably end up at NASA or somewhere. He was brilliant. But Uncle Bob, when he was like 12, 13 years old, where they grew up on that farm with the post office and the little general store, had a little farm there, and horse flies ate him up. And they noticed on the barn, they had a light on the barn, and he noticed these horse flies always fly around the light when it's lit at night or in the evenings. So he rigged up with screens and 120 volt AC, and I'm not sure if he used wood spacers or how he spaced it, but he came up with two screens, and when these flies would fly into the screens, it would zap them, right? He invented the bug zapper in like the 1940s and early 50s. In fact, 40s. He's brilliant, but I mean, he didn't patent that. That wasn't one of his patents, but everybody from all around would come watch those horse flies get zapped. And, oh, that's the brightest thing I've ever seen, and he was brilliant, man. So I think I got a little bit of his thinking outside the box in me. Kind of how I came up with the bypass that everybody's using now. But yeah, we had small libraries, and it was a lot. They would talk about that a lot because there was a lot of folk, and where I grew up, it was kind of it was an educational book, teach you how to put up stuff and quilting, and there's a cabin building. There's a lot of topics in there that a lot of interest to people where I grew up. I know a lot of people, Doug, that do this. They don't drink at all. Hadn't drank in years, and they still love making it, sharing it with their friends. They just love working with it, love the process, and got actually quite a few. Surprisingly, that's crazy. But yeah, there's a lot of fermented foods. When I was showing the calm yeast earlier, that was actually on some foods that they didn't use vinegar or get it acidic enough to keep a lot of the calm yeast down, and they didn't, boil everything and kill all the bacteria off beforehand either. So that's why we use the double boilers and the pressure cookers and all that, pressure canners, is to heat things up and get it, not scorched or burnt, but you got to get it to a certain temperature to kill bacteria off. And then what's going on, Mr. Dance? Good to see you, brother. Are you going to Maggie this year? Where are you going to see you this weekend? Yeah, it's good for your gut health. Even that lacto, I was talking about. That's great probiotic. That's great for your digestive. It's a great digestive enzyme. It's good. Yeah, I just posted a different mead recipe. It's kind of a spiced mead, and it's an old recipe. It's like 400 or 500 years old. I just posted it. I think I put it in the easy recipe. I put it in the militia DIY, and probably in the rock gut, maybe. Yeah, rock gut. Most of the places where I'm admin or moderator. I like putting things in that recipe outfit too, because they get a lot of off-topic stuff. I like to help keep them on topic there. But it's a pretty good little group too. There are a lot of good discussions. But man, you talk about a lot of comments, and that's where I see a lot of people that really need this class. That's why I don't try to comment in there sometimes and say, hey, come ask your questions here, because I'm like, hopefully you're not listening to some of these people and some of these answers you're getting here, because it's really, I'd love to put the red stamp because it's a large group, and you'll see 200, 300, 200, 300 replies to every post on there, and there's a lot of misinformation going on in there. But there's a lot of guys that are knowledgeable too, that are helping gatekeep and correct a lot of things. But a lot of people don't know, and some of those guys, aren't the most tactful, so they're kind of condescending sometimes when they correct people, but they do know what they're talking about. And I'm not going to name any names, but there's quite a few in there, and I'll still give them the thumbs up, even if they're not being tactful, because they're just getting fed up, with a lot of the misinformation. It's like, why do these even people comment? Why don't they just let us help and not, I don't know. But like I say, a lot of them are misinformed by other people, and they think what they're telling is right. So they think they're helping somebody, but they were misinformed, also. And it just, like that tail keeps growing taller on down the line, get a little misinformation and a little misinformation, a little more, and it just becomes more and more misinformation each time it's told. And by the time you see it told a fifth or sixth time, it's just totally wrong, right? Yeah, I hope you're doing well, brother. Right. Some people are like that, Hillbilly. So some people want to know, I was always that way. What makes it work? What makes everything tick? I'd take things apart that wasn't broke just to see what made them work. How does this work like that? What makes this thing work? And stripping down a recipe and figuring out, why certain ingredients are in there and how they work together. Some people will never question it. They don't care. They'll run that recipe and it comes out good, and that's all they care about. They don't want to know why. Don't care why. And that's fine. That's not everybody has to know and have that inquiring mind and need to know the details. Some people are just happy that it came out well and don't really need to know why it came out good. And that's all we need to know, right? And that's nothing wrong with that. Can't argue with that. That's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of fermentation, just making pickles and pickling. That's kind of a fermentation in of its own. We were talking earlier, and I was a totally different group, but they were talking about pizza dough and stuff. I'm like, if you ever, made sourdough, and get you some fermented dough going, and they're like, no. And I'm like, well, read up on sourdough and start using that for your pizza. And somebody's like, wow, it's awesome, so now they're into sourdough. Yeah, it's a stinking house up, huh? That's why some of my fermentations, it smells really good, but sometimes, like that watermelon, it didn't smell real good because it just got too hot. A lot of off flavors, a lot of, and I say that the jam jelly, that was the worst, but that was spores. It wasn't so much smell; it was just the spores. When I opened that lid and took a big whiff, I was expecting to smell goodness, and I got choked by spores. Man, I about puked. Man, that was horrible. Man, it makes me sick thinking about it. Yeah, we've done that in the past, get a little bit more complicated, but it's really tough to just dedicate a whole episode to step by step and scientific why, because it's so many questions being asked, and it's hard to stop explaining what I'm doing and then answer a question and go back to it, or you try to answer it. So maybe a video, maybe we can do a video or something like that where we can get a little bit more complex and do the beginning to end, and also add some pictures and charts in it at the same time, kind of edit them in as I'm doing it and kind of explain what I'm talking about. I don't want to do the whiteboard and draw a bunch of shit. That's I don't have time for that. I'd rather just show a picture that's already there. It's going to be a lot better than what I can draw anyway. But yeah, maybe we could do something like that. Right, right. So I mean, if there's an interest in it, we can definitely build a class around it. You know, because there's or not a class, but a podcast or a video. Yeah, a little brew house efficiency. You know, we were talking about the other day. Somebody was asking about doing um just like a wheat, an all wheat or an all barley or something like that, and asking how to do it. And someone was trying to explain to him, you just bring, get your water to 150 and add your barley, and I'm like, no, if you're using all grain, that's not including corn. The reason we started a high temperature, and worked backwards is because we're using corn. If we're not using corn, we start a low temperature and work our way up, just like it's step mashing. That's the way beer is done. And you have your resting periods and, your protein rest, saccharification rest, and enzymatic rest, as you go. So, it's a different process, right? So you slowly increase your temperature. So it's a totally different process. And that's the best way to do it. You start at a high temperature and just throw your all your wheat in there at 155 and it's going to get fucking gooey as shit. But if you step mash it forward, it's not nearly as bad, right? Because your enzymes are able to start breaking a lot of these things down as you step up. So that helps a lot, right? And it doesn't get as gooey. And he was wondering why he had the gooey. And of course, I was telling him about using the Seb meal and the Seb flow and the Disco Seb and all that Clint's taught us about. That's got some, a glucanase that helps break down the glucans, right? It's different than a glucoamylase. It's a little bit different. It's a glucanase. And sometimes it's mixed with a beta glucanase. That's different than glucanase, beta glucanase, and it's more efficient in breaking down some of these slimy glucans, and it's in the malted grain. So if it's malted and you step mash it up properly, it has a chance to break these down naturally without having to get your viscoseb and sebflow. So there's different processes, especially when you're looking at beer making versus using corn, right? So it creates, so beer makers I've talked to in the past are like, well, can I just step mash my other grains first and then cook my corn and then bring it down and then combine them all at the 150, 40, whatever degree I ended up with stepping up? And absolutely, yeah, that would be probably the best way to do it for somebody that's knowledgeable in step mashing. Just steep your corn and use some, liquid high temp, and then combine that step mashed up to that at 140 some with active, alpha and some of your beta glucanase in there, and then maybe even finish up once it cools on down with a gluco. And I would say you'd get a really good conversion and a lot of good flavors. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it, right? And it will depend on your mash. And you made me think about that with the brew house efficiency, because in a brew house, it's totally different, right? Step mashing up is going to be totally different than when you start adding corn and gelatinizing the corn. Yeah, and if you tried to, if like in the old days, trying to cook malted corn and maintain without, denaturing the enzymes, yeah, that was an all day process, and it still wasn't very efficient at all. Still a lot did not get converted. Much more efficient these days. Right. And it is, especially when you're typing on there and you try to be as direct and concise as you can without getting long-winded like me, because nobody likes to type long-winded responses and start going into the story about when me and old Jim Bob did it. We don't want to hear all that, so we just type directly, and sometimes it comes across wrong, and that's inflection is everything. Yeah, it does. Here's Miss Tammy. How you doing? That's all right. We was worried about you. Damn, it's after 11. I'm glad to see you in here. Hope you're doing well. So I'm headed to Maggie Valley this weekend. Should be a good time. Yeah, they were Shriners and Freemasons, but they were Shriners too. And Hillbilly Days in Pikeville has been a Shriner festival. Hillbilly Days, back in the old days, everybody brought moonshine. It was a big moonshine thing. That was long before the show, and they've gotten way past that now. It's all about food and gotten kind of commercialized. They bring in the rides, and they've got bluegrass bands coming in. They got clogging in the park. It's awesome. It is a lot of fun. So a little less about shine, but a lot of crafts. A lot of people bring their crafts, and there's still some shine. But it's great. It's been going on for about almost 50 years now, I guess, since I was about 12, 13 when it started. That time I got started shining. But yeah, it's been going on since the 70s. So it's close to its 50-year. First or second week of April every year. Anybody that grows up in Eastern Kentucky has heard about Hillbilly Days. But we have people from all over the world come there. Shriners from all over the world. It's a big Shriner celebration, and they really love coming. They've got all kinds of old Model Ts that they drive, old trucks. They've got little old antique looking mopeds they drive around, little mini bikes, these Shriners with their hats and tassels and stuff. It's great. And it's always been, all the profits go to the Shriners Burn Center, I think in Ohio. Yeah, that's what they need. Bad Santa Distilling 101. Yeah. Thursdays. There is a lot to learn, and you can learn as much as you want. When a lot of people call it the rabbit hole, and if you have that inquiring mind, that rabbit hole can get huge, man, because there's so much to learn, and it's so intriguing, so interesting, especially once you learn the science. And once you do, you'll be so amazed at the yeast. There's such incredible enzymes in yeast are so incredible in what they can do. It's just amazing. Oh, we will. I'll see Amanda and Jay. Yeah, they're good people, good friends. I guess they'll be there. I hadn't talked to Jay. Hopefully they'll be there. I'm sure Amanda will be there. Yeah, they're going to do the gift thing Thursday, I'm sure. I haven't talked to him. I hadn't talked to Jay in a while. I don't know. His mom hadn't been the best health. She was in the hospital a couple of weeks ago. So prayers going out to her. She's out now. I'm feeling a lot better. So hopefully she's doing better. But Jay's been busy trying to keep Amanda out of trouble and taking care of his mama. Yeah. Yeah, I ain't gonna do that. My buddy Jay, he's a gunner. He probably shoot your ass. Yeah, he's a good guy. Oh, Jay. For those that don't know Jay, he's awesome. Jay Brennan, her boyfriend, fiance, husband. We're not sure about that, right? I call him her husband. Thank you for tuning in, brother. Appreciate you, man. Hell yeah. Hey, I'll be here till I'm not able to anymore. Yeah, I've that's why steeping, you'll only scorch so many, and then you'll find out that really steeping is the way to go if you can. But if you can find a big old cooler cheap, or like I say, get a 55-gallon drum and set a 40, that's thin, smaller inside of it and foam around it, make yourself a cooler, or get one of those big fishing coolers, big long coolers, or a big, 120 quart cooler or something. Some of those coolers get big, but if you can get a big cooler or use several, you can mix it up and just dump it into several, to steep in. But definitely a lot safer, But when you step mashing and bringing temperatures up and doing things like that, you're going to end up having to cook. Like somebody said earlier, cooking on the stove is much more efficient until you get to a certain scale, and then it's a lot tougher. Getting a banjo burner, maybe the diffusion plate would be great for cooking, maybe not as efficient for distilling, but definitely for cooking, it's that even heat. And it don't have to be a 1-inch pig iron. You can use something thin that transfers the heat real well. It just spreads it out, right? Right. Yep. Right. Yeah. The old timers, they step mash forward like that so they wouldn't denature the enzymes and utilize them the best. And that came from the beer makers. That wasn't the whiskey makers. That was your beer makers that mastered that. And some of it's like the protein rest, so you're not going to necessarily need that as much because, we don't care about the protein hazes. We don't care about the clarity of the beer that we're going to distill. So it becomes there's some changes being made. And hops, of course, we're not using those. So it's going to be a little bit different. Ferment on the grain. I prefer to ferment on the grain for several reasons. A, flavor. B, nutrients. So you're going to, especially if you got malts in there, you're going to get some nutrients from those grains that will help the fermentation get more flavor if you're making beer off, because basically by the time you've step mashed it up and you've leached and cooked and gotten everything out that you really need, and most of your beer makers will probably go off and get better clarity, like we were just talking about, But for distilling, it's not as critical, right? So that's another difference that you'll see in some beer makers will definitely ferment off the grain. They'll steep and get all the flavors and all the alcohol and that they need out of it, and then boom, they'll take it out, and it makes a lighter flavored beer. You don't want all your beer to have such concentrated heavy flavors like what we do when we distill it, because distillation takes out a lot of flavors, so we want those extra flavors in there so we can get something to carry forward during distillation, whereas beer makers, that's not good. So different process, very similar though. So beer makers generally make really good whiskey makers. Right. Exactly. Well, thank you, Miss Tammy. Hope you have a good weekend as well. Yeah, I mean, when I joke with Ann, I'll try to say it in a serious tone because it doesn't come across the same, if you're doing sarcasm, fun, humor, is if you don't say it serious, it doesn't, come across as, is he joking or not? Oh, ha ha. So it's like, yeah. So she doesn't know if I'm joking or not. So she gets mad sometimes too, because I'm pretty sarcastic humor wise. I try to, man. I don't know. Sometimes the way I feel, I don't know. Don't know. But I'm going to try to stay around as long as I can. That's probably why you probably don't see me drinking as much. Had to cut back a little bit, Definitely not getting any younger. Drinking more wine, but my doctor kind of said if you're going to be around a long time, you better slow down. My liver, I was getting some annual checkup. They're seeing some kidney and liver issues, so I had to slow down. So I just drink lower proof, right? Just sip. Yeah, the girls have a great show, man. It's a lot of fun. I wish I could get on there, man, but doing this twice a week and you know, I wish I could do, and I'd love to be able to get on Mondays, you know, with Big Easy's and their show. That's a good show too, and some of the, you know, Fridays, some of those shows are good as well, especially, you know, when Wayne gets on there and Amanda. Nothing against the other guys, nothing against Tom and Chad or anybody else. I shouldn't say that, but I really love listening to Amanda, you know, and Wayne talk about a lot of the science stuff. You know, they get into some of that stuff that I love hearing and talking about. But yeah, there's a lot of good shows, man. I wish I could just, you know, be on every night watching them, because we got them pretty much, you know, Monday night, Thursday night. We got me Tuesday, and then Thursday, and then Wednesday, I guess Shonda and Jeremy have the Hustle show going, and there's some good shows. But I guess this Friday they're going to do a shit show. I won't be on there because I'll be at Maggie. And next week, I think it's scheduled for a shit show, and I'll probably be on there. I enjoy getting on there for those. And here, I forgot to turn comments back on them a long time ago. Somebody forgot to tell me. All right, y'all. I'm going to have to get off here. It's getting 11:30. We ran over. I wanted to kind of run over, and we had a lot of questions. Good discussions tonight. Yeah, I have to try to keep it. And I used to love 130. I've been drinking Wes's 140, and you know, I like it, but it don't like me. So I'm gonna have to lower my proof if I want to increase my age. I love me some Evan Williams. Yeah, I drink a lot of Evan Williams. That Evan Williams bottled in bond is probably one of the best values in alcohol. Usually I have a quart sitting next to me, but it's over there at the bar. But yeah, it's really good for the money. If you're just going to buy liquor just to drink and get drunk on, it's good. You know, I don't like buying Weller and getting drunk on it, because after the second or third drink, I don't give a fuck what it is. It doesn't. I don't taste it anymore. I'm just drinking, you know. So I could start out with a Weller and drink a few drinks and bottle that up, set it aside, and then finish up with that Evan Williams. Good stuff. Heaven Hill bottled and bond, very, very similar. A little bit more expensive and about the same. Comes from the same people. Yeah. Swish to stop the toothaches. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I drink. You know, it's to kill that bacteria. Trying to kill them bacteria in my mouth. Yep. And in my throat. You know, I got to get them in my throat too. And, you know, might as well just go ahead and swallow it and get all that bad bacteria in your stomach too, you know. Yeah. Take a few probiotics afterwards, just kind of cleanse the system. That's what we're doing. All right. Good seeing everybody. Hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Going to miss you Saturday, so pray for everybody. Hope everybody has a safe travels to Maggie that's going. Everybody look me up. Again, I might not recognize you. Don't be mad. I talk to you every week twice, but I don't see your pictures and I don't see your faces. So come up and let me know who you are, and we'll have a good chat, and it'll be good to meet everybody in person. But we'll see everybody back here Tuesday. I think it's like, let's see, this weekend, and then Tuesday the 28th. Yeah, Tuesday the 28th. Something. Saturday the 1st is coming up. Something in my. Anyway. All right. Well, we'll see everybody back here Tuesday the 28th. Everybody have a great week and a great weekend. And peace out. Shine on. We'll hopefully see a bunch of you in Maggie. If not, yeah, it does. It's good for that, isn't it, Tammy? That's what I like about it. But we'll see everybody next Tuesday. Love y'all. Peace out. Shine on.